Chapter 1122. The faces of Xiao Yan's group involuntarily revealed a shocked expression when they saw the scene in front of them. It was difficult to imagine why Green Jade City had suddenly turned into such a state. Just who was it that committed such a violent act in the city? They were so cruel to the point of massacring the entire city. Moreover, they had even destroyed the most important transportation formation in the city. Damn it! Who the hell did this? Once the teleportation formation was destroyed, Xiao Yan's journey would be blocked. He would not be able to reach the southern region and would not be able to save the Lu family. Could it be him? Just as Xiao Yan was cursing in a deep voice, Luo Jin suddenly thought of something. His gaze suddenly turned and landed on the loft where the Yunin Pavilion was located. At this moment, the Yunin Pavilion had long been reduced to ruins. Naturally, it was impossible to find out anything. However, Luo Jin could guess that the person who had caused all this was probably the person who had been in the loft. Zhang Yi. Before parting ways with Luo Ao on this trip to the western region, the latter had warned Luo Jin to be careful of Zhang Yi in Emerald City. Even though Luo Jin did not understand the meaning of Luo Ao's words, he could not help but place all his suspicions on Zhang Yi when he saw the current state of the city. A person whom Luo Ao had specifically warned was probably not a simple person. Soon after, Xiao Yan relied on his enormous spiritual energy to gather wisps of extremely weak black qi in the ruined city. Instantly, his expression became extremely gloomy. Ghost Palace. Luo Jin immediately understood the reason why Luo Ao had warned him to be careful of Zhang Yi. It was likely that Zhang Yi had used his true identity as a member of the Ghost Hall and had borrowed Zhang Yi's body to hide by their side and keep an eye on their movements. Unfortunately, even though they now knew the other party's identity, it was already too late. The entire Emerald City had been destroyed and the teleportation formation had been destroyed. They would not be able to leave the western region. Ghost Palace, it's Ghost Palace again. Even though he had already recognized the other party's identity, Xiao Yan could only grit his teeth and curse angrily since the formation had been destroyed. What should we do now? The teleportation array has been destroyed. We can't enter the southern region. Leng Bingshuang, who was beside Xiao Yan, also clearly felt the rage in Xiao Yan's heart at this moment. While she was worried about this, she could only try her best to calm Xiao Yan's emotions. The more it was at such a moment, the more one had to suppress their inner emotions. Otherwise, once they lost their rationality, they would lose even more. I can try to repair this formation, but it will take a few days. Luo Jin furrowed his brows. Speaking of which, this could be considered as his own negligence. Now that Emerald Green City had been destroyed, the only thing he could do was to try his best to repair the teleportation array. No, I can't wait that long. I have to leave immediately. Otherwise, the Lu clan will be in danger of being exterminated for even a second longer. After being comforted by Leng Bingshuang, Xiao Yan's emotions were temporarily suppressed. However, he did not place his hopes on the teleportation array. A few days' time was enough to determine the outcome. He had to rush to the Lu clan before all of this happened. Xiao Yan could not wait any longer. Xiao Yan's reply left Luo Jin and Leng Bingshuang speechless. Without the help of the formation, how were they going to reach the southern region? Phew, Xiao Yan let out a long breath. He seemed to have made up his mind. If they had to reach the southern region without the help of the teleportation array, it was not completely impossible. However, there were very few people who could use this method. That was, to destroy the regional boundary. As long as they used the purest strength to directly destroy the regional boundary, Xiao Yan and the others would be able to freely enter and exit the two regions before it gathered the energy of heaven and earth to restore itself. However, it was practically impossible for Xiao Yan to achieve this with his current cultivation. Even if he used the void path, it was impossible to pass through the boundary without any obstructions. Since ancient times, all those who had attempted to pass through the barrier of a region could only rely on their great strength to forcefully shatter a hole in the barrier of a region other than relying on a formation. Now, Xiao Yan needed to use this method in order to enter the southern region. Brother Xiao, don't tell me you, when he thought of that, even with Luo Jin's temperament, he could not help but reveal an expression of shock. Let alone others, even if he used everything he had, he would not be able to destroy the regional boundary. However, if it was Xiao Yan, even though his heart was unwilling to believe it, Luo Jin's subconscious still had an indescribable feeling. It was as though all the impossible things that were placed in front of Xiao Yan would present a chance. Perhaps, Xiao Yan could really do it. At the same time, Leng Bingshuang by the side also tightly clenched her white hands. Her pretty eyes were filled with worry as she looked at Xiao Yan. She was clearly aware of Xiao Yan's character. Once he had decided on something, it would be very difficult for him to change his mind. The thing that she was most worried about was that it was fine if the region barrier could be successfully broken. However, if it failed, it was likely that Xiao Yan would suffer an even greater backlash. Afterwards, Xiao Yan did not say anything else. He turned around and flew towards the south. I'll go as well. Seeing Xiao Yan turn around and leave, Leng Bingshuang hurriedly moved to follow him. However, she was stopped by Xiao Yan. You and Luo Jin stay here. He'll repair the teleportation formation. You need to be on guard against people from the ghost hall. I'll go alone. Once he said those words, Xiao Yan exchanged glances with Luo Jin. The latter immediately nodded heavily upon seeing this. After which, Xiao Yan swiftly left this place with a lightning-like speed. Leng Bingshuang watched Xiao Yan's back as he left from where she stood. Even though her heart was extremely anxious, she could only obediently remain there. Soon after, Luo Jin also placed his attention on the destroyed transportation formation in front of him. Although the teleportation formation had been destroyed, its original formation was still there. As long as the damaged part was repaired, the teleportation formation could still be used. However, with Luo Jin's current strength, it would take several days to repair the teleportation formation. On the other side, Xiao Yan was using his fastest speed to fly to the south. In less than 15 minutes, he had arrived in front of a natural golden energy barrier. When he raised his head and looked over, he could see no end to the golden barrier. It stood between the sky and the earth. It was just like a wall that connected the sky and the earth, separating the southern and southern regions from each other. This was the so-called Zhou region boundary. Chapter 11:23. Xiao Yan's eyes were filled with determination as he gazed at the golden wall before him. In reality, the western and southern regions were not as far apart as he had imagined. However, due to the barrier, the distance between the two regions was like the distance between heaven and earth. No one could travel back and forth between the two regions without the use of a teleportation formation. Of course, this was only a saying that had been passed down by most people. Even without the assistance of a teleportation formation, it was not impossible to pass through the barrier by relying on one's strength. However, this was dependent on one's strength. This point seemed to have imperceptibly once again explained the importance of strength on this continent to everyone. Powerful strength was the pass that every place on the continent would definitely acknowledge. Even something as powerful as the force of the heavens and the earth would be unable to stop it if it was sufficiently powerful. Huff, Xiao Yan slowly exhaled as he looked at the dense energy barrier in front of him. At this moment, a ripple involuntarily rose in the bottom of Xiao Yan's heart despite his mental fortitude when he personally faced the Zhou region barrier. In the eyes of many experts, the provincial domain barrier was an existence that could not be broken. It had stood in the world for countless years. No one knew how it had been formed, but everyone knew that it was powerful. It was not something that anyone could touch. Anyone who wanted to challenge the might of the provincial domain barrier would definitely have to pay a great price. Even so, Xiao Yan was determined to set foot in the southern region today. Even the force of the heavens and the earth would not be able to stop him from going over. On the other side of the golden barrier, the land that could be vaguely seen was the southern region. How could the so-called force of the heavens and the earth make him retreat so easily? If he did not fight, he would never be able to break through it. Ha! Mammoth technique, activate. In the next moment, a world-shaking roar burst out from Xiao Yan's mouth. Raging flames burned in the depths of Xiao Yan's eyes, and a huge golden figure stood between the heavens and the earth. Facing the golden barrier, Xiao Yan suddenly clenched his fist, and a terrifying force rapidly condensed in his palm. It had the power to shatter the heavens and the earth. Ferocious heavenly flames burned vigorously on his fist, melting everything. Even space would be incinerated into nothingness. Level 8 collapse. A thunderous roar came from his throat. At the same time, his huge fist heavily smashed down, ruthlessly smashing into the golden barrier in front of him. The powerful force immediately turned into circles of seemingly solid energy ripples that rapidly spread out. Just as Xiao Yan's fist was about to leave a dent on the golden barrier, before Xiao Yan could catch his breath, an even more ferocious force suddenly shot out from within the barrier like a volcanic eruption and ruthlessly smashed into Xiao Yan's body. Bam! With a loud muffled sound, Xiao Yan's body was immediately sent flying. The mammoth technique dissipated in an instant, and a mouthful of blood involuntarily spurted out from his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan's face turned deathly pale. Cough 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 cough. After a series of violent coughs, Xiao Yan crawled out of the huge pit that was smashed out with some difficulty. He coughed out a few more mouthfuls of blood and hurriedly swallowed a pill. Only then did his expression become extremely grave as his gaze once again landed on the golden barrier that had returned to its original state. It must be said that this Zhou region barrier was much stronger than Xiao Yan had imagined. Originally, he thought that with just his punch earlier, even if he was unable to shatter the barrier, he should at least be able to penetrate half of the barrier's thickness. However, after this attempt, Xiao Yan finally understood that he had greatly underestimated the toughness of this barrier. It was impossible for him to shatter it by relying on brute force alone. Instead, he would end up receiving a barrage of attacks from this barrier. It could be said that the losses outweighed the gains. In the end, there was only one method that Xiao Yan could think of. Unless he could shatter this region's barrier in one strike, he could only continue like this without knowing the foundation. It was simply not a solution to wait and see. A full-force attack was Xiao Yan's only choice now. With this thought in mind, Xiao Yan wiped off the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth. As he refined the pill in his body to heal his injuries, he freed up his hands. With a pu sound, each of his hands held a type of heavenly flame. After which, under Xiao Yan's control, the two types of heavenly flames began to slowly merge. And this move was Xiao Yan's trump card, the Angry Buddha Lotus Flame. Other than this move, Xiao Yan could not think of any other Do technique that could possess such might. He only had one chance. If he did not use his full force, the price was definitely not something that he could bear. Therefore, using the Angry Buddha Lotus Flame was also imperative. A moment later, an extremely exquisite fire lotus was agglomerated and formed between Xiao Yan's hands. As it floated and rotated, the invisible space was easily torn apart. Under this seemingly harmless and exquisite appearance, there was a terrifying destructive force that caused one's courage to shatter. After which, under Xiao Yan's expectations, the fire lotus slowly floated out from his palm. It was like a butterfly that had just broken out of its cocoon as it gently flew towards the region's barrier. During this process, Xiao Yan's heart was incomparably nervous. He was naturally extremely clear about the might of the Angry Buddha Lotus Flame. If even this attack was unable to break the region's barrier, it was likely that not only would he be unable to enter the southern region, even his life would be in danger. Under Xiao Yan's anxious gaze, the fire lotus and the golden barrier slowly came into contact, boom. An extremely terrifying storm of destruction swept out. Powerful energy viciously slammed against the region's barrier. In the blink of an eye, the region was reduced to endless darkness. Everything in the surroundings was destroyed. Even the majestic region's barrier shook violently. The powerful force had clearly succeeded in shaking the power of the world. Xiao Yan could not help but reveal an excited smile when he saw this. This continued until the powerful storm of energy completely dispersed. As the storm swept out, Xiao Yan's vision cleared up. Half of the world had been destroyed beyond recognition. On the other hand, the region's barrier actually remained the same. This, in an instant, Xiao Yan's entire body solidified on the spot like a stone statue. It was unexpected that even his greatest trump card was unable to shatter the barrier of this region. However, soon after, just as Xiao Yan was filled with disappointment, a gentle crack suddenly rang out from the region's barrier. Afterwards, with a bang, the thick region's barrier suddenly exploded, revealing a gap that was just large enough for a person to pass through. In this way, the path to the southern region was completely laid out in front of Xiao Yan. Chapter 1124. While Xiao Yan's side had broken the boundary of the region and was preparing to enter the southern region, a group of people from the southern region were using an extremely fast speed to fly to the southwestern border. The leader of the group was an old man with long, gray hair. His face was somewhat shady, and his sunken, turbid eyes contained specks of golden light, giving him a somewhat strange appearance. The most shocking thing was that this old man's cultivation was clearly only that of a 9-star Daoist. However, the auras of the other two old men behind him had already reached the origin transformation realm. The remaining people behind them might not be able to compare with the three people in the front row, but they were all top experts among the Daoist class. Their strength could not be underestimated. The group flew in the sky for a long time until an origin transformation expert behind the old man curiously asked, "Master, there's a group of people in Blue Sun City. It's not bad that there's an origin transformation expert in Azure Sun City, but there doesn't seem to be a need for so many of us. With me and Chen Yan working together, we'll definitely be able to deal with all of them." "That's right, Master Mu. The palace master seems to be making a big fuss this time. It's not like we've never met an origin transformation expert before. With the two of us working together, what can't we deal with?" To the side, the old man called Chen Yan laughed. His face was filled with confidence, as if the operation this time did not put any pressure on him at all. If it's just killing them all, it'll naturally be fine if it's just the two of you. However, the palace master has already given the order that one of the people in Azure Sun City must be brought back alive. That person is that origin transformation expert. Do you think you can bring him back alive?" Hearing the words of the two people behind him, the gray-haired old man coldly snorted. His words caused the two of them to become speechless. If the other party did not intend to self-destruct, they might be able to do so, but if that person intended to self-destruct, it would be very difficult for them to stop him. Very quickly, this group of people arrived outside Qingyang City. At the same time, the Lu family in the city had already noticed the arrival of this group of people. All the experts in the family moved out and flew into the sky to confront the group of people outside the city. The person in the lead was Bai Hua. These fellows really don't know when to stop. Lu Huabai, who was standing next to Bai Hua, looked at the group of people in front of him with a gloomy expression. All these years, the Azure Cloud Mansion had constantly sent powerhouses to attack his Green Sun City. However, due to Bai Hua, in addition to the arrival of Qin Zhong and the others, the Azure Cloud Mansion's powerhouses were defeated time and time again. Due to this reason, the Green Sun City's reputation had spread rapidly in the surrounding cities. The first result of this phenomenon was that the Lu clan's external businesses were extremely profitable, allowing the Lu clan to become even more prosperous than before. But half a year ago, this state of affairs was finally broken by an even more terrifying force. It was Sea Cloud Palace. As the greatest organization in the southwest, Sea Cloud Palace had begun to expand their territory without any limit since a year and a half ago. Sea Cloud Palace originally only occupied a portion of the prosperous cities, but in just a few short months, they had swallowed up over a dozen cities in the surroundings. Their methods were so ruthless that it was despicable. Unfortunately, faced with Sea Cloud Palace's brutality, the original clans and organizations in the cities could only surrender or die. In order to survive, many powers on the southwest border could only choose to endure or surrender. There was no such thing as spectators, because everyone was powerless to protect themselves. Even passers-by on the side of the road could be sentenced to death by Sea Cloud Palace in the next moment for a groundless crime. For a moment, the entire southwest seemed to have fallen into hell. However, among the many organizations, only the Lu clan of Qingyang City was able to remain unscathed. This was because the Lu clan possessed a super expert at the late stage of the origin transformation realm. Because of Bai Hua, the few groups that Sea Cloud Palace had sent had all been mercilessly beaten back. The successive defeats had alarmed the upper echelons of Sea Cloud Palace. As a result, they were able to send out 2 origin transformation experts this time, as well as the leader, a gray-haired old man who was only a 9-star Daoist. Be careful. Our opponents this time are much stronger than the previous few waves. Bai Hua frowned as he glanced at the 2 origin transformation experts. Even he would find it extremely difficult to fight against 2 alone. Moreover, there seemed to be someone even more difficult to deal with in this group. Bai Hua's expression was somewhat ugly as she stared at the gray-haired old man. Although this fellow's aura was only that of a 9-star Daoist, the strange aura that was faintly emitted from his body caused her to be extremely shocked. There's something strange about this fellow. Bai Hua quietly spoke in her heart. She turned her gaze and immediately collided with Zhongli, whose expression was similarly ugly. Clearly, the other party had also sensed the strength of the few people on the other side. Adding this to the group of elite Daoist behind them, it was likely that this battle would be even more difficult than they had imagined. If Xiao Yan was here, these old bastards would be nothing. However, at this moment, a cute little head suddenly climbed up from Bai Hua's shoulder. Under the sunlight, an exquisite and pretty face was revealed. A pair of crystal-like bright eyes coldly stared at the group of people on the other side. The words that came out of her mouth caused everyone present to involuntarily recall the person who had not been heard of for many years. Xiao Yan, ah. I wonder how much he has grown. If he was here, there might still be a chance to turn things around. Qin Zhong's face was filled with disappointment as he recalled Xiao Yan in his heart. He involuntarily recalled the scene when Xiao Yan had saved him back then. Although he was still a young man, the strength that was contained in that body was something that many of the older generation, who had been famous for a long time, could not compare with. It's not a possibility, it's a certainty. If Xiao Yan was here, this group of people would definitely not be able to withstand even one of his attacks. The young lady was unwilling to give up as she opened her mouth. On the other hand, Bai Hua gently pressed the young lady's exquisite little head down. Alright, Qianxian, quickly go back. Remember to look after that girl, Lian Er. Leave the matters here to us. This young lady was surprisingly the one who had left the Mu Rong family alone back then and traveled far to the southwest border. Murong Qianxian. I believe you must be Bai Hua. For the past half a year, your name has resounded like thunder in my ears. With your own strength, you have repeatedly repelled several waves of my Sea Cloud Palace teams. You already possess such strength at such a young age. Kid, in my entire life, I have only seen 2 people like you. You are the second. At this moment, the Sea Cloud Palace team outside the city slowly walked forward, arriving in the air less than 100 feet away from Bai Hua and the others. The 2 sides stared at each other from a distance. When the gray-haired old man's words rang out, he involuntarily lifted his hand and stroked his left arm. A ruthless look flashed in the depths of his eyes. Oh? Is that so? Then I think it's time for you to stop here. I will make sure that your memory is forever fixed at this moment. Bai Hua coldly snorted when she heard this. At the same time, the Genesis Qi in the vortex in her body abruptly gushed out of her body. A powerful aura turned into an invisible storm with Bai Hua at the center, oppressing the gray-haired old man and the others. Chapter 1125. The curtains to the Battle of the Qingyang city began. The two groups, which had a total of nearly 30 people, began an intense collision in the sky above Qingyang city. Bai Hua relied on her own strength to fight against two origin transformation experts. With her advanced origin transformation cultivation, she was not at a disadvantage for a short period of time. As for Qin Zhong and the others, they each faced an elite Do Di from the Sea Cloud Palace. Among them, Zhongli faced the gray-haired, old man. Ha ha ha, Zhongli, it has been many years since we last met. It is unexpected that you have actually come here. Zhongli, who was also a 9-star Do Di, violently collided with the gray-haired, old man. The two of them immediately separated. However, the moment the two of them separated, the gray-haired, old man spat out an extremely strange sentence from his mouth. Zhongli immediately frowned when he heard these words. Although the person in front of him was filled with a strange aura, he did not seem to have come into contact with him. What did he mean by saying these words? It seems like we have never met before. Today's battle will definitely be the first time we have clashed. How can there be such a thing as meeting again? You have chosen the wrong person if you want to disturb my mind. Zhongli hesitated for an instant before letting out a cold snort. His body flashed and he arrived in front of the gray-haired, old man in the blink of an eye. He raised his hand and viciously slammed it down on the other party's chest. Ha ha ha, as expected, you don't even recognize me now. Following a strange laugh, the gray-haired, old man's body wiggled strangely. He actually used an extremely strange posture to dodge Zhongli's attack. Zhongli's face did not show any surprise when he saw this. His hand swept through empty space as his body suddenly twisted. He turned around and kicked out once again. However, at the critical moment, the gray-haired, old man used his left hand to firmly grab his ankle. The powerful force was actually forcefully dispersed by him. What? Zhongli was startled. Before he could react, the person in front of him pulled forcefully pulling his body in front of him. Soon after, his right hand flashed with a golden light and arrived in front of him. A palm imprinted itself on his chest. Boom! Zhongli was immediately blown away by the palm strike. Strangely, while Zhongli's left hand was filled with power, his right hand seemed weak and powerless. It was very difficult to injure him. As a result, the gray-haired old man's palm strike only caused his vital energy and blood to churn. If it were anyone else, even if they were not heavily injured, they would definitely suffer from the palm strike. Humph, damn it. Seeing that Zhongli was fine, the gray-haired old man cursed angrily with an unwillingness in his heart. Soon after, his right hand was swiftly raised. A mysterious golden formation was suddenly formed in his palm. Zhongli, I'll make you remember who I am soon. Zhongli spat out a venomous voice. In the next moment, golden light flickered around him at some unknown time. It quickly turned into a cylindrical barrier of light, trapping him within. This is... When Zhongli attempted to break this strange formation, he was shocked to discover that he was unable to break this strange formation with his strength. No matter how he attacked, this formation did not break at all. Instead, a portion of its strength was reflected back to him. The appearance of this scene caused him to involuntarily recall a certain person in the past. It was also because of this formation that he had once fallen into endless pain. He. God-trapping formation. Zhongli, do you still remember? In the ancient savage city, Buzz. The moment the gray-haired old man uttered these words, the scenes from back then immediately surfaced deep within Zhongli's mind. Soon after, he involuntarily cried out involuntarily. Muhan. You are Muhan. How is this possible? Mu Han was one of the top figures in the ancient savage city back then. Unfortunately, he met Xiao Yan and fell into dire straits. In fact, he even lost an arm because of Xiao Yan. Back then, Mu Han had lost an arm because of Xiao Yan in the ancient savage city, causing him to become a cripple. However, not only did he change his appearance, he even regained his lost left arm. He, you didn't expect it, right? I'm back. Not only is my left arm back, even my cultivation has become even more powerful than before. Zhongli, Lu Du and Qin Zhong, I'll start with the three of you today. As for Guli and the rest, I'll sooner or later return to take revenge on them. After revealing his identity, Mu Han's face immediately revealed a ferocious expression. His pair of shady old eyes were filled with the flames of revenge. Back then, he had lost an arm because of Xiao Yan and was almost a cripple. In order to survive and take revenge, he left the ancient savage city. After a few twists and turns, he joined the Sea Cloud Palace. Due to certain reasons, he even borrowed this body to be reborn. His left arm could once again be used and its strength was even greater than before. Unfortunately, the price he had to pay was that his right arm would lose a large portion of its strength. Other than using a battle formation, he would not be able to use any Do techniques. However, in order to take revenge and obtain greater strength, he was willing to do anything. He was even willing to betray himself in order to obtain more strength. No one was aware of the pain during this process. Mu Han treated all of this as a calamity that Xiao Yan had brought him. It was also because of this that he felt an even greater hatred for everyone within the ancient city. He. Today, other than him, everyone else in this Qingyang city will die. Mu Han's face was ferocious as he pointed at Bai Hua. Although his hatred had almost drowned out his consciousness, he was still quite fearful of that palace master. Hence, he had no choice but to hold back. Waves of powerful spiritual strength immediately surged out of Mu Han's body after these words left his mouth. It formed a turbulent energy wave that instantly shattered the invisible empty space. As this spiritual strength surged out, many huge golden light pillars swiftly shot out and formed a strange formation that covered everyone in the battle circle. When one looked at Mu Han again, a palm-sized white formation plate had appeared in his hand. The reason why those light pillars were able to spread so quickly was mainly because of this formation plate in the middle. Otherwise, with Mu Han's current ability, it would be insufficient for him to swiftly form such a large formation. When the formation was completely formed, Ling Tian's light engulfed the entire Qingyang city. Beams of energy intertwined with each other, forming a huge 8-pointed star. Every node in the star was filled with surging energy. As long as Mu Han willed it, the huge killing formation would be activated immediately. Ancient Heaven Killing Spirit Formation, activate. Chapter 1126. Following Mu Han's explosive roar, Ling Tian's enormous formation suddenly began to revolve at this moment. Within the enormous 8-sided star, there was a small 7-sided star as well as a couple of small star-shaped formations. The layers of formation surrounded each other. When the outermost 8-sided star began to revolve, the formations within it also began to revolve. Golden light blossomed and it was even more dazzling than the sun in the sky. Even the color of the sky changed. After the ancient heaven soul-slaying array began to operate, waves of surging natural energy between the heavens and the earth were drawn by the array and continuously gathered within it. A frightening murderous aura also spread along with the gathering of these energies, forming an invisible barrier that enveloped the entire sky above Qingyang city. Bai Hua and the rest in the sky noticed the change in the situation and immediately gathered their gazes. They raised their heads and saw the Lingtian killing formation that was filled with a murderous aura. The expressions on everyone's faces immediately changed. Soon after, Bai Hua's gaze shifted to Zhongli, who was trapped by Mu Han. Zhongli had no chance of breaking through the latter's formation no matter how hard he tried. In other words, based on the current situation, they had already lost Zhongli. The only person left on the battlefield who could contend against the two origin transformation experts and Muhan was Bai Hua. Once Bai Hua was defeated, Qingyang City would completely collapse. However, just as Bai Hua was thinking about how to delay the battle, balls of golden energy balls suddenly fell from the sky like meteorites from the astonishing killing array in the sky. They smashed into the city below without any target. Instantly, countless people who were watching the battle and the Liu family's residents were caught in the crossfire in the blink of an eye. Under the bombardment of the countless energy balls, the countless spectators in the city lost their lives under the bombardment of the array. The originally bustling Qingyang city was turned into ruins in just a few minutes. Corpses were strewn all over the place, and dilapidated fences and walls were in shambles. It could be said to be a miserable sight. Even Liu Huabai and the others, who were fighting intensely in the sky, had also fallen into the city due to the chaotic bombardment. Although they were not seriously injured, they had suffered quite a lot. Additionally, the other party's elite Dou Di continued to give chase. The battle quickly fell into a disadvantage. Clearly, they would not be able to endure for long. Damn it! Bai Hua couldn't help but grit her teeth and curse in her heart when she saw this scene. The killing formation in the sky was truly troublesome. If it was allowed to continue operating, then even he would be unable to avoid being heavily injured. Even though the cultivation of Qin Zhong and the others were above Liu Huabai's group, they themselves were surrounded by danger when faced with such a situation. It was already barely possible for them to take care of themselves, let alone rescue Zhongli. As such, the only person who still had a chance to save Zhongli was Bai Hua. However, just as Bai Hua was about to move, the two origin transformation experts appeared in front of her in a flash. At the same time, Muhan also stood between the two of them, staring at her with a sneer on his face. Ha ha ha, you want to save people? I think you should think about yourself first. With a sneer, Muhan waved his hand and the two beside him immediately shot towards Bai Hua. Their figures were just like phantoms as they arrived in front of Bai Hua in the blink of an eye. They formed a pincer attack from the left and right, viciously bombarding the important parts of Bai Hua's body. Even with Bai Hua's cultivation, she did not dare to be the slightest bit careless in the face of these two powerful attacks. Genesis Qi surged from her body as she blocked the attacks. While the three separated, Muhan's figure had unknowingly appeared behind Bai Hua. Golden light blossomed from his right hand as it viciously slammed down on Bai Hua's back. Scram! Bai Hua's expression darkened as her body violently jerked. Her body twisted in an extremely strange manner as her palm violently collided with the golden light. Boom! As the attack landed, Bai Hua's figure retreated in a miserable manner. Muhan was also sent flying by Bai Hua's palm. Even though Bai Hua's cultivation in the Tao of Arrays was rather high, he was no match for Bai Hua in a head-on confrontation. Bai Hua's expression was grave as she lowered her head and looked at her charred palm. After clashing with the golden light, she realized that even she was unable to completely block the powerful force contained within. Muhan's fighting strength was likely not below her own. Furthermore, with the addition of the other two fellows, her life would be in danger in this battle. ****, Bai Hua sighed helplessly. At this moment, he could only hope that Wuxia Xianxia would quickly leave with Lian. If not, it would not be a problem for him to fall into a desperate situation, but for Wuxia Xianxia and Lian, one was extremely important to him, while the other was someone Xiao Yan had entrusted to him to take care of. He could not allow anything to happen to them. As long as the two of them were fine, there was nothing else he had to worry about. Die. Just as Bai Hua was in a daze, the two origin transformation experts charged forward once again. They viciously slammed their palms towards Bai Hua's head one after another. The wind from their palms was so sharp that it was impossible to dodge. Since you guys want my life so much, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Returning to her senses, Bai Hua coldly snorted and no longer hesitated. After receiving the two palms head-on, she could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. When she raised her head, Mu Han's figure had appeared once again. However, this time, Bai Hua did not have any intention of dodging Mu Han's attack. She faced it head-on and viciously slammed her palm towards Mu Han's chest, as if she was willing to trade her life for his. Sensing her opponent's intentions, Mu Han's expression immediately changed slightly. The formation that was originally about to land on Bai Hua's head could only change its direction and collide with Bai Hua's attack once again. Soon after, the two origin transformation experts charged forward once again. As Bai Hua retreated, they each slammed their palms into his chest. Immediately, large mouthfuls of blood spurted out uncontrollably. Bai Hua's face also became deathly pale in an instant. His body heavily smashed into the city below, but even so, he did not show any fear. His mouth was filled with blood as he loudly laughed with a vicious expression. Ha ha ha, a group of trash. Is this all you've got? Come again if you have the ability. Bai Hua laughed as he climbed up from the ruins with great difficulty. The three people in the sky also descended before Bai Hua at this moment and stared down at him from above. At this moment, the huge formation in the sky had already dispersed. However, the Qingyang city had already been reduced to ruins. More than half of the Lu clan's people were dead or injured. Even the patriarch and grand elder were heavily injured. As for the others, they had all lost the ability to fight. Seeing Bai Hua fall, the Lu clan of the Qingyang city was finished. Although it's not bad to deal with someone like you as soon as possible, the palace master has already instructed us to keep you alive before we set off. Thus, we can only trouble you to come with us. Mu Han gently smiled. At the same time, the formation condensed in his palm once again. Humph, you want me alive? Ha ha ha, I won't let you have your wish. With a sinister laugh, the remaining energy in Bai Hua's body instantly went berserk. His pale face instantly turned red as a powerful energy rapidly flowed within his body. It was as if he was about to self-destruct. You want to self-destruct? Humph humph, a faint sneer was heard. Seeing that Mu Han was about to attack, an anxious shout was heard. Then, a beautiful figure immediately entered Mu Han and the others' line of sight. She threw herself into Bai Hua's bosom. No! You can't die. I don't want you to die. We still have to wait for Xiao Yan to return. Nothing must happen to you before he returns. Hearing this familiar crying voice, Bai Hua's heart trembled. The owner of this voice was Wuxia Xianxia. That's right. Originally, he had asked Wuxia Xianxia to leave with Lian Er. However, he did not expect her to return. Wasn't this like a lamb entering the tiger's den? He, I didn't expect another one to come. It seems like the relationship between the two of you isn't ordinary. This way, things will be much simpler. Seeing this scene, a sinister expression immediately appeared on Mu Han's face. He gave a signal to the two people beside him. The two of them immediately nodded and charged forward. Ignoring Bai Hua's struggles, they forcefully grabbed Wuxia Xianxia and restrained her. Facing two origin transformation experts, Wuxia Xianxia naturally did not have any chance of breaking free. Bai Hua also cursed with a face full of hatred. However, the other party did not care about her at all. No matter how she roared, the other party remained indifferent. Humph humph, looks like you're quite fond of this girl. This way, you won't be willing to see her suffer even the slightest harm, right? Mu Han said with a sneer. When he saw the furious expression on Bai Hua's face, he felt extremely carefree. When Bai Hua struggled and pounced forward, Mu Han sent her flying with a slap. Dark red blood sprayed out once again. Wuxia Xianxia could not help but cry out loudly. However, everything seemed so powerless. He, you want to save her? With your current strength, I'm afraid you don't even have the strength to stand up, let alone save her. If you want her to live, it's best if you obediently follow me. Otherwise, with a strange laugh, Mu Han's dark eyes landed on Wuxia Xianxia. He extended a bamboo-like finger and the sharp tip of his finger gently brushed past the latter's smooth face. Bai Hua was unable to endure it and a panicked expression immediately appeared on her face. As she screamed, she hurriedly agreed to Mu Han's request without any hesitation. He, if you had agreed earlier, all this wouldn't have happened. Mu Han sneered as he raised his hand and gently stroked Wuxia Xianxia's small head. His old face was filled with malevolence. Whoosh! However, in the next instant, an ear-piercing sound rang out. Wuxia Xianxia, who was under the control of the two origin transformation experts, suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Mu Han suddenly let out an extremely miserable shriek. This was because his extended left arm had disappeared along with Wuxia Xianxia. Chapter 1127. At this moment, a miserable shriek that pierced the sky suddenly rang out in the ruined Qingyang city. On the side of the street, two origin transformation experts were stunned as they stared at the woman who had suddenly disappeared. They could not help but be startled. Soon after, a painful shriek came from Mu Han's mouth. Only then did the two of them notice the latter. Immediately, shock appeared on their faces. At this moment, Mu Han's left hand that was originally caressing Wuxia Xianxia, along with his entire arm, had disappeared. Only charred black traces could be seen on his arm. All of the blood that was about to flow out from his arm had been forcibly stopped. However, Mu Han's complexion had turned deathly pale. The pain that reached his soul was unbearable. Even though his spiritual strength was far greater than ordinary people, the pain of losing an arm was something that he could not endure no matter what. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that he would suffer the same sin and the same pain twice. Furthermore, the most ironic thing was that even his missing arm was his left arm again. He had paid an enormous price in order to obtain his powerful left arm. Yet, he had lost it again. At the same time as this brought Mu Han endless pain, he also felt anger and resentment. Who are you? Mu Han's old face was distorted. The moment he raised his head, two streams of blood flowed out from his eyes. However, the pain in his heart far exceeded this. Today, he would make the person who had caused him to lose an arm pay a painful price no matter what. Not far away, a black-robed figure had his back facing the three people. Wuxia Xianxia, who was in his embrace, had fainted due to the stimulation from before. However, Bai Hua, who was in front of him, was currently stiffly raising her head to stare at the person in front of her. Her face was filled with disbelief. At the same time, there was an indescribable joy at the corner of her mouth. It was as if she was rejoicing that she did not self-destruct earlier. It was also as if she was rejoicing that she was able to see the person in front of her again. The moment he saw the black-robed person in front of him, he understood that since he had returned, the trouble that Qingyang City had encountered today would naturally be easily resolved. He had always believed in this point. Just as Bai Hua was about to say something, the black-robed man extended his hand and handed Bai Hua a pill. Without any hesitation, Bai Hua opened her mouth and swallowed it. On the other side, when Mu Han saw the back of the black-robed man, an indescribable feeling of déjà vu flashed across his heart. At the same time, his furious heart trembled uncontrollably as fear uncontrollably emerged from the depths of his heart. The mysterious black-robed man before him, whom he had yet to see, was actually able to instill fear in him under such circumstances. This caused Mu Han's heart to involuntarily shudder. At the same time, an even greater curiosity rose within him. The more he felt this inexplicable danger, the more he wanted to explore it. Human nature was on full display at this moment. Who are you? Mu Han enunciated each word clearly. Even so, he could still feel the tremor in his voice. Following Mu Han's words, the black-robed person in front of Bai Hua slowly turned around. The face that was covered by the black robe was slowly illuminated by the sunlight. It was Xiao Yan. Buzz. However, the moment Mu Han saw Xiao Yan, his pair of shady old eyes instantly shrunk to the size of a needle tip. Even his heart became sluggish at this moment. His entire person appeared to have turned into a stone statue in an instant. His heart was both shocked and terrified. No matter what, he had never imagined that he would meet Yi Shiwen again at a time like this. Mu Han had imagined the scene of him meeting Xiao Yan again countless times. However, he had never imagined that it would be in such a situation. Based on the speed of Xiao Yan's attack earlier, it was likely that the other party's cultivation had also reached the origin transformation stage. Moreover, it was definitely superior to Bai Hua. Moreover, Mu Han had personally sensed Xiao Yan's frightening fighting strength, which far exceeded his own cultivation. If they were to meet again now, even with Mu Han's current cultivation, he did not have the confidence to defeat Xiao Yan. Fortunately, other than him, there were still the 2 Origin Transformation Realm experts beside him and over 10 Do-D experts on the battlefield today. If these people were added together with his formation, it might not be difficult to kill the person in front of him. Who? Xiao Yan. It is unexpected. It is really unexpected. It is actually you. Mu Han's tone was extremely low as he spoke. His pale face was immediately covered by a dark haze. A savage killing intent crazily gathered at this moment. Xiao Yan could not help but frown slightly as he stared at the unfamiliar face of the gray-haired old man. Although this person's appearance was unfamiliar, Xiao Yan could sense from the other party's words, his gaze, and the strange aura from his body. He had definitely met this fellow somewhere before. Of course, their relationship was definitely not good. Otherwise, this fellow would not have said such resentful words. Although I still do not know who you are, it is a fact that you have destroyed this place and injured them. Therefore, today, you and them, will all stay behind. A faint sentence slowly drifted out from Xiao Yan's mouth. However, just as the last sentence left his mouth, the ground beneath his feet suddenly exploded, forming a hole. Large cracks spread out like a spider web. Xiao Yan's figure also strangely disappeared from the spot. Bang! Almost at the same time, the elite Do-D from the Sea Cloud Palace, who were following closely behind, appeared to have suddenly received a heavy blow. Numerous figures smashed heavily into the city below like meteorites falling from the sky and were buried deep under the ground. With just one strike, the dozen or so Do-D from Sea Cloud Palace had lost their ability to fight in an instant. Even their bodies had received heavy injuries. Their auras were extremely weak, as if they could die at any moment. Moreover, the most shocking thing was that all of this had happened in an instant. By the time Mu Han and the 2 Origin Transformation experts behind him recovered, Xiao Yan had already returned to his original position. His indifferent gaze was still watching them, as if he had never left. Gulp, at this moment, the 2 Origin Transformation experts involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Such a frightening speed was something that even they were unable to catch up to. It was very difficult to imagine that if Xiao Yan had chosen to attack them, it was likely that their current situation would not be any better than the dozen Do-Ds. Chapter 1128. Now that I've dealt with those small fries, it's your turn. Raising his head, Xiao Yan's gaze landed on the 3 people in front of him. Killing intent surged within his calm, pitch-black eyes. If he had not arrived in time, it was likely that the entire Qingyang city would have been destroyed. Even Bai Hua and Wuxia Xianxia's lives would have been threatened as a result. This kind of thing was something that Xiao Yan could not tolerate. Bai Hua was extremely important to Xiao Yan. Naturally, he would not ignore her. Wuxia Xianxia was the pearl of the Wuxia clan. Although she had been stolen from the clan, this matter was related to him. Finding her was within the scope of his responsibility. If anything happened to Wuxia Xianxia, he would not be able to absolve himself of the blame even if he died 10,000 times. Fortunately, Xiao Yan's arrival had put an end to all of this trouble. Humph, Xiao Yan, don't be too happy yet. Even if those people are dead, we still have 2 Origin Transformation experts here. Including me, you won't be able to escape from us alone. Forcefully suppressing the hatred in his heart, Mu Han spoke with a cold expression. At the same time, he quickly raised his right hand. The storage ring on his finger flickered and another formation disc appeared in his hand. Although ordinary formations were quick to set up, their power would be limited to a certain extent. If a powerful formation was set up on the spot, it would definitely consume a large amount of time, which would be extremely disadvantageous to a battle. However, the formation disc perfectly combined these two factors. While being able to set up a powerful formation, the formation disc that was engraved on it could also greatly reduce the time needed to set up the formation. Coupled with the unique convenience of formations, it had become a must-have item for many experts on the continent when they went out to train. However, compared to ordinary people, only in the hands of a true formation master would a formation disc be able to display its brilliance. Xiao Yan, today, I'll let you experience the power of a 5th-tier formation master. As Mu Han let out a low roar, a large amount of spiritual force poured into the formation disc in his hand. In an instant, golden light shot out like a miniature sun. At almost the same time, mysterious golden inscriptions condensed under Mu Han's feet, forming a semicircular formation that enveloped Mu Han's body. Soon after, the mysterious formation once again appeared in the air above Xiao Yan's head. This time around, a large, strange thundercloud gathered from all directions and covered Xiao Yan's head. It was impossible for him to dodge it. Xiao Yan's face was covered by the thundercloud. He was not able to dodge it. Xiao Yan, this is a 5th-tier formation that I have specially prepared for you, 9-layered lightning formation. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to dodge it. Coupled with the two beside me, he. Forget about them, even you will have to die today. Mu Han's face immediately revealed a ferocious expression when he saw that the formation in his hand had been successfully formed. These 9 types of lightning formations were a rank 5 formation that he had spent a great amount of time to research. He had even borrowed the help of heavenly lightning a couple of times in order to create it. The strength that it possessed was definitely among the top of the middle class, even if it could not be ranked among the top of all the rank 5 formations. Hence, he believed that he would be able to deal with Xiao Yan by relying on this 9-layered lightning formation. Mu Han was very clear that Xiao Yan was of the fire attribute. Coupled with the assistance of the heavenly flame, the strength that he possessed far exceeded that of an ordinary person. As for the lightning attribute, it was also known for its offensive power. The destructive power that it possessed was also extremely terrifying. Hence, Mu Han wanted to use the lightning formation to temporarily suppress Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Coupled with the 2 origin transformation experts beside him, dealing with Xiao Yan would be a piece of cake. Rumble. Thunderclouds churned in all directions in the sky above Xiao Yan's head. Numerous bolts of lightning that contained a golden glow repeatedly flowed within the thunderclouds. A powerful pressure descended from the sky, causing Xiao Yan to feel a faint pressure. TSK, is this a 5th-tier formation? Its presence is truly shocking. Probably even regular returnance experts wouldn't dare to be careless with the power of this formation. Master Mu, I never thought that your comprehension of formations would have reached such a level, Jian Chen said with a smile. Even with the cultivation of the 2 origin transformation experts, they could not help but inwardly gasp as they stared at the oppressive thunderclouds in the sky. This formation was only at the middle tier of Class 5 formations. Just how powerful would an even more powerful formation be? This old man has waited for this day for a very long time. Since he has delivered himself to me today, I'll settle the old and new debts together. Hearing this, Mu Han's old face could not help but reveal an arrogant smile. As a 5th-tier formation master, he had the right to be arrogant. Once he broke through to the 6th tier in the future, let alone origin transformation experts, even origin kings and origin emperors would have to be wary of him. Now that the 9-fold lightning formation has been activated, I still need to control the formation disc. So, I'll have to rely on the 2 of you to deal with Xiao Yan. Don't worry, Master Mu. No matter how fast this brat is, he is currently within the lightning formation. There is no way for him to dodge. With the two of us working together, there definitely won't be any problems dealing with him. The two of them laughed heartily. Seeing Mu Han take out such a powerful formation, the two of them naturally felt more confident. If they were still shocked by Xiao Yan's speed before, then with the assistance of the ninefold lightning formation, their fear of Xiao Yan instantly decreased by half. Naturally, they no longer had any misgivings in their hearts. Soon after, the two of them charged toward Xiao Yan, who was within the lightning formation. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already entered the lightning formation. They were only a few dozen meters away from Xiao Yan. At the same time, under Mu Han's control, bolts of lightning in the sky viciously smashed down on Xiao Yan. The powerful force even shattered the invisible space. The powerful destructive force was like a golden spear that could destroy the world as it descended from the sky, aiming directly at Xiao Yan's head. However, in the face of the lightning above his head, Xiao Yan ignored it. His gaze landed on the two people in front of him. While he sneered, his body shook as he instantly used the giant elephant art. His hands opened into two palms as he faced the incoming lightning head-on. He's actually not taking any action to block the ninefold lightning formation. He's really courting death. The faces of the two involuntarily revealed a surprised expression when they saw this scene. Soon after, the palms of both parties collided. At the same time, the soul-stirring thunderbolt above Xiao Yan's head instantly entered his body. What? Seeing that the thunderbolt had actually entered Xiao Yan's body without causing any splashes, Mu Han and the two origin transformation experts revealed shocked expressions on their faces. This was especially the case for Mu Han. The moment the thunderbolt entered Xiao Yan's body, not only did it not cause any splashes, but the connection between him and the thunderbolt had also been severed in an instant. Soon after, Xiao Yan let out a cold laugh while Mu Han and the other two were feeling shocked by this situation that had suddenly appeared. His mouth suddenly let out a loud cry. "Sorry, your lightning is useless against me, so I'll return it to you right now." With that, Xiao Yan's palms shook, forcing the two people in front of him back. At the same time, two bolts of lightning suddenly shot out from his palms and heavily struck the chests of the two origin transformation experts. Chapter 1129. Puqi. When the two palms landed heavily on the two origin transformation experts, the powerful force of lightning immediately surged into their bodies like a volcanic eruption and began to wreak havoc. A powerful force violently rampaged within their bodies. Even though they had already done their best to resist the lightning energy, their internal organs were still injured in the end. They could not help but spit out blood from their mouths, and their faces quickly turned pale. The situation that had suddenly occurred in front of them was something that the two of them and Mu Han had never expected. After the thunderbolt strength had entered Xiao Yan's body without holding back, not only did it not cause any harm to Xiao Yan, but it had also taken away his control as its master and used that strength on the two origin transformation experts. Although the force of lightning was greatly reduced after being split into two, the terrifying destructive force coupled with the fact that the two of them did not have any extra defensive measures allowed the force of lightning to erupt with its full strength. After suffering this attack, even with the Chen Yen duo's cultivation, even if they did not end up seriously injured, their fighting strength would definitely be reduced by over half. In this way, their chances of victory against Xiao Yan would be even lower. Currently, the nine-layered lightning formation was no longer of any use to Xiao Yan. Stubbornly borrowing the strength of the lightning formation would only cause them to end up in trouble for no reason. God damn it! Why is it like this? In the distance, Mu Han stared at the scene before him in disbelief. When he thought back to what had happened after the lightning had entered Xiao Yan's body, he felt even more disbelief. Xiao Yan was clearly of the fire attribute, so why was the force of lightning completely ineffective against him after entering his body? Instead, it was being used by him. Mu Han had never imagined such a result. No matter how powerful Xiao Yan was, it was impossible for him to be so heaven-defying. After all, he was still an origin transformation expert. It was a pity that Mu Han did not know that Xiao Yan had been using the force of lightning to cleanse his body. His body already possessed a certain degree of immunity to the force of lightning. On the other hand, the lightning that Mu Han had used was only the most common type of heavenly lightning. No matter how much lightning he gathered, its power was still limited. It was impossible for him to use it to harm Xiao Yan. As for the connection between the force of lightning and Mu Han, it had been easily erased by Xiao Yan with the help of the heavenly flame. As a Class 5 soul, it was not difficult for Xiao Yan to accomplish this, not to mention that the battlefield was within his body. Thus, from the looks of it, the Class 5 9-layered lightning formation had already lost its original use to Xiao Yan. Using such a level of lightning before Xiao Yan was completely useless. Only after Xiao Yan withdrew his hand did the bodies of Chen Yan's duo climb up from the ruins below them. At this moment, the auras of the two of them had been damaged. Their fighting strength had also been greatly reduced. However, they were after all origin transformation experts. Even so, the two of them still possessed some confidence when facing Xiao Yan with their strength. Cough cough cough. Brat, we will remember this debt. In the future, we will definitely make you pay back several times over. Chen Yan clenched his teeth as he spat out these words. After exchanging glances with the other person, he quickly retreated while facing Xiao Yan. It seems like the two of you did not understand what I just said. When I said that I want the two of you to stay here forever, it means that the two of you must die today. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan curled his lips and sneered, his eyes filled with mockery. The expressions of Chen Yan's duo suddenly changed when these words were uttered. Their pale white faces immediately became gloomy. By taking the initiative to withdraw, they had already admitted their defeat today. However, from the looks of Xiao Yan's intention, it appeared that he did not intend to allow them to leave. Brat, don't be too arrogant. Even if the two of us brothers are injured, it is impossible for you to easily kill the two of us with your cultivation. If you dare to use force, be careful that even you will not be able to bear the consequences. A life and death struggle is not a good choice. Chen Yan's expression was extremely stormy as he slowly spoke. The Genesis Qi in his body began to circulate once again. When the Genesis Qi flowed through the injured meridians, waves of intense pain immediately spread, causing the two to grit their teeth in anger as hatred filled their hearts. Teacher Mu, help me. Chen Yan continued to gather the Genesis Qi in his body as he turned his head and shouted at Mu Han, who was still within the golden light barrier. He clearly understood just how terrifying Xiao Yan was. If they really charged forward without any preparation, the two of them would very likely end up in the same predicament as before. As a precaution, they had no choice but to seek help from Mu Han. They believed that with the aid of this rank 5 formation master, it would be much easier for them to deal with Xiao Yan. Mu Han hesitated for a moment upon hearing their pleas, before taking out 2 more formation discs with a strange expression on his face. He continuously poured the Genesis Qi and spirit power in his body into them. Golden light blossomed, transforming into 2 formation barriers that protected the Chen Yan duo's bodies. With the protection of the formation, the Chen Yan duo seemed to have donned a thick layer of armor. Light swirled around them, making them look like golden immortals descending into the world. However, everyone knew that these 2 individuals who seemed to be the embodiment of justice were actually the cause of the deathly stillness and murderous aura in the city. Humph, brat, do you still dare to repeat what you just said? With the formation around them, the duo's condition seemed to improve along with it. At the same time, their confidence also increased significantly. What's done can't be undone. I never take back anything I've said. I've already said that the two of you must stay here today. No matter how much you stubbornly resist, my will never change. Xiao Yan's expression was solemn in the face of the duo's provocation. As his words rang out, his figure abruptly disappeared from the spot. His hands were tightly clenched into fists as he activated the giant elephant art. When he reappeared, a giant fist viciously slammed into the duo's bodies. Light immediately blossomed from the golden formation. The majority of the power behind Xiao Yan's punch was blocked by the formation. From this, one could tell that this formation was no ordinary object. A rank 4 formation, the Diamond Bodhi formation. It was one of the most powerful rank 4 formations, and even an origin transformation expert would not be able to easily destroy it. Ha ha ha. You can't even break through my defenses, how can you possibly kill me? Xiao Yan's fruitless punch was met with mockery from Chen Yan and the rest. The duo twirled their hands as powerful Genesis Qi immediately gathered in their palms, before they each sent a vicious attack towards Xiao Yan's body. Boom! The attacks of the two of them were blocked by Xiao Yan's crossed arms. At the same time, his body swiftly withdrew. He frowned slightly as he stared at the golden formation that the two of them were wearing. He hesitated for an instant before a killing intent suddenly surged within his eyes. Chapter 1130. When Xiao Yan once again arrived in front of the two of them, he did not dodge or evade their combined attacks. By relying on the strength of the giant elephant's skill, Xiao Yan was completely able to block their attacks. However, whether the two of them could block him was another matter altogether. Boom! Xiao Yan's expression did not change in the slightest as he forcefully endured the attacks of two origin transformation experts. His body blocked the two of them as he slowly extended his large hands. A pitch-black steel needle floated in each of his palms. Genesis Breaker Needle. At the same time that Xiao Yan let out an explosive cry in his heart, two dark black steel needles were ruthlessly pierced by Xiao Yan into the formation on the surface of the Chen Yan duo's body. The Genesis Breaker Needles were in truth the 10 special needles Xiao Yan had condensed from the Great Tao of the Void. After witnessing their ability to pierce through Genesis Qi, Xiao Yan had given them this name for convenience. Ha ha ha, it doesn't hurt at all. With this formation, your attacks to us, however, before the laughter from the Chen Yan duo could fade, their originally ferocious smiles suddenly distorted intensely. One could see that the formation that originally covered their bodies had suddenly turned into golden light that scattered all over the sky. Soon after, Xiao Yan's fist firmly landed on their backs. Boom! The duo's bodies were like two shooting stars, instantly smashing into the ground below. The terrifying force instantly shattered all the bones in their bodies, and even many of the meridians in their bodies were severed. Let alone standing up, even the most basic movement of Genesis Qi was no longer possible. Without any fancy moves, a single punch was all it took to knock the two of them down once again. The more powerful a battle was, the simpler it would be. The difference in strength was already very obvious at this point in time. Once a battle began, there was no need for too many tactics. As long as one could use the most direct and violent method to knock down one's opponent, the outcome of the battle would immediately become clear. No matter how fancy it was just a feint. As long as he was serious, he would be able to shatter all illusions. This once again proved that strength was the only thing in this world. As long as one had enough strength, any tricks would be useless. When Xiao Yan grabbed the duo from the rubble, endless fear immediately shrouded their hearts. A strong feeling of death also enveloped their hearts at this moment. No matter how they thought about it, they did not expect Xiao Yan to be able to shatter the golden formation in such an easy manner. His strength had already reached such an extent. They had indeed underestimated Xiao Yan's terror. In the distance, when Mu Han saw Xiao Yan grab the duo in his hands, fear surfaced in his heart. He quickly turned around and fled in the direction he came from, not daring to look back. I say, since things have already come to this point, do you still think that you can leave this place alive? Mu Han. Although the first half of Xiao Yan's sentence was cold, other than fear, Mu Han did not have many other emotions. However, when he heard Xiao Yan personally call out his name, the fear that had been suppressed in the bottom of Mu Han's heart finally gushed out uncontrollably. Ah! With a scream, Mu Han's body involuntarily retreated. After which, he fell miserably on the ground. His entire body trembled and he wanted to stand up. However, no matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to get up from the ground. It was as if his 2 legs had lost all feeling and he was unable to move an inch. He was unable to use any strength and could only watch as Xiao Yan continuously approached him. I never expected that after not seeing you for so many years, you have actually turned into this state. If you did not use a large amount of spiritual strength previously, I would not have realized it. Although you have changed your appearance, your soul is an unchangeable fact. However, I never expected that you would actually forcefully merge with another person's body and even devour the other person's soul. Is that why you are able to occupy this body? Humph, the person who caused me to be in this state today is none other than you. You killed my disciple, broke one of my arms, destroyed all my savings, and nearly caused me to become a cripple. All of this is because of you, Xiao Yan. Ever since the day I left the ancient savage city, I swore that regardless of the method, as long as it allows me to recover my broken arm and possess an even greater strength, as long as it allows me to take revenge on you, I am willing to accept it regardless of the price. Mu Han did not know where his strength came from when he mentioned the pain of the past. He supported his body and stood up. At the same time, a thought passed through his mind and the Do Qi within his body began to wildly surge. His entire body also began to swiftly swell. Xiao Yan, die. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will definitely make you pay a terrible price for what you did back then. Suddenly, Mu Han's entire state began to become crazy. Waves of strange black air began to flow out of his 7 orifices at the same time that the Do Qi within his body began to surge, lingering around his body. Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly when he saw the few wisps of strange black air. No wonder. No wonder Mu Han was able to use such an inhumane method to recover his body. It was actually because of this reason. This body of Mu Han's was created by the people from the Ghost Hall. At this moment, if Mu Han were to self-destruct, the black vapor within it would definitely transmit the entire process and details of Xiao Yan's appearance and the big battle between them to the hands of that group of people. This would be a great trouble for Xiao Yan. The current situation was still unclear. He was still unclear about the exact strength of these people. Hence, before this, he must not reveal too much of his situation and strength. Otherwise, it would definitely bring him endless trouble. However, the thing that caused Xiao Yan to be most surprised was that the hands of these people had actually extended to this place. It was not just the western region. Even the southern region had been invaded by the Ghost Hall. The border of the continent was actually already under the control of the Ghost Hall. However, the most important thing now was still this Mu Han. Although the fact that you have come into contact with them has indeed caused me to be extremely surprised, it will end here. Xiao Yan coldly uttered. Soon after, Mu Han's body began to swell intensely and was about to explode. Soon after, he suddenly raised his hand. A wisp of heavenly flame surfaced in his palm. Immediately, he slammed it heavily onto Mu Han's head. In an instant, the powerful strength caused Mu Han to immediately lose all consciousness. His pair of shady old eyes, which were filled with madness, swiftly dimmed. Even his swiftly swelling body came to a halt because of this. Do Per Reincarnated Flame Emperor, Do Per Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Chapter 1131. After finishing off Mu Han, the danger of Qingyang this time around could be considered to have come to an end. Although they had suffered a great loss, it was fortunate that the worst outcome in Xiao Yan's heart did not occur. This could be considered a blessing amidst the misfortune. With Mu Han's death, the 9-layered lightning array that enveloped the heavens and the earth dissipated. Zhongli, who was trapped by the array in the sky, was also freed. When he arrived in front of Xiao Yan and saw that the latter was dressed the same as before, he could not help but feel surprised. After so many years, even this group of people had gained quite a lot of white hair. On the other hand, this appearance of Xiao Yan in front of him, which had not changed at all, involuntarily caused him to recall the scene back at the ancient savage city. Everything seemed to have happened yesterday. I didn't expect that even Brother Zhongli would come. Only after seeing Zhongli escape did Xiao Yan become aware that Zhongli had been here all along. This was something that he had not expected. It's not just me. Qin Zhong is here too. Even Lu Du, who was defeated by you back then, is here. Hearing Lu Du's name, Xiao Yan could not help but secretly ponder for a moment. After all, it was something that happened many years ago. There were some things that he could not remember clearly. However, after rummaging through his memories, he roughly remembered that Lu Du had indeed fought with him for the Void Lightning Pool in the ancient savage city. Unfortunately, Lu Du was defeated by him. He did not expect that Lu Du would also appear here. Soon, Qin Zhong and Lu Du dragged their heavily injured bodies and arrived in front of Xiao Yan, supporting each other. The two of them had already noticed Xiao Yan's arrival. Unfortunately, they could not move their bodies. Otherwise, they would have already rushed over. Now that they had rested for a while, they could barely endure the pain and walk. Even so, when the two of them arrived in front of Xiao Yan, they could not hide the excitement in their hearts. Brother Xiao Yan, I have failed to live up to your expectations. The Lu clan actually, Brother Qin Zhong, you don't have to worry about it. These opponents are not something you can handle. Xiao Yan is already very grateful that you can persist until now. Now, you should focus on recuperating. Leave everything to me. Xiao Yan helped the ashamed old Qin Zhong up. After throwing a comforting smile at the latter, he handed a rank 5 medicinal pill to Qin Zhong. Only then did his gaze land on Lu Du by the side. If one were to say that Qin Zhong had helped him protect the Lu clan because of the agreement between the two of them, then Lu Du's appearance was a little strange. He was someone who had been defeated by Xiao Yan. The two of them should have been at each other's throats. It was unexpected that he would actually help Xiao Yan protect the Lu clan. However, since it had already come to this, Xiao Yan naturally wouldn't delve into the reason. He also smiled and said a word of gratitude, and handed the latter a tier 5 medicinal pill without hesitation. When they received the medicinal pill in their hands, everyone's eyes couldn't help but show a strong shock. With their eyesight, even if they were stupid, they could see that this was a tier 5 medicinal pill. Suddenly, Qin Zhong and others couldn't help but show shock on their faces. Although they also knew that Xiao Yan was an alchemist, when they witnessed Xiao Yan's powerful strength, they really couldn't imagine that his alchemy skills could be so powerful. No one could cultivate cultivation and alchemy to such a level at the same time. At least, they didn't dare to imagine so. Brother Xiao Yan, this medicinal pill, brother, don't worry about it. This is what I refined when I had nothing to do before. I still have a lot here. These unintentional words caused these fellows, who were already seriously injured, to spit out a mouthful of blood. Xiao Yan's words had undoubtedly admitted his identity as a tier 5 alchemist to them. This made them feel even more shocked. They had spent most of their lives in order to train to their current level. However, Xiao Yan in front of them had trained both the way of alchemy and the way of alchemy to such a powerful level. Regardless of whether it was in terms of cultivation or alchemy skills, Xiao Yan could be considered strong. If the Xiao Yan back then could only make them look at him in a different light, then the current Xiao Yan already possessed strength that they could only look up to. He was able to kill 2 origin transformation experts by himself, including a tier 5 formation master. With such strength, Xiao Yan could definitely be regarded as one of the best among all the origin transformation experts. It was even possible that Xiao Yan was an invincible existence among the origin transformation experts. Soon after, Lu Huabai and Lu Xincheng also saw Xiao Yan. When they saw Xiao Yan again, every single one of them revealed a smile as if they had just survived a disaster. Even though they had just barely escaped with their lives, the moment they saw Xiao Yan, the haze in their hearts was instantly swept away. Their originally heavy hearts immediately relaxed. Xiao Yan's appearance was like the sun that had emerged from the dark clouds, sweeping away all the haze. It was as if as long as he was present, all dangers would be easily resolved. Soon after, under Zhong Li's lead, the group of people temporarily entered a relatively intact courtyard in the city. Other than Zhong Li and Bai Hua, the rest of the people went to the side and began to refine the medicinal pills in their bodies. Murong Qianqian was resting in a room in the courtyard. After the stimulation just now, this girl had completely fainted. It would probably take a while for her to wake up. Mr. Xiao Yan, I never would have thought that after so many years, you would have already become so powerful. It really makes me feel ashamed. Xiao Yan and the two others were seated opposite each other in the courtyard. Now that they were close, Zhongli was able to clearly sense the faint aura and pressure that seeped out of Xiao Yan's body. Xiao Yan did not release or withdraw it. He simply allowed it to spread in such a calm manner, causing one's heart to be extremely shocked. It's just good luck. There's nothing to feel ashamed about. Hearing this, Xiao Yan smiled faintly. After saying a few words of comfort, his gaze once again landed on Bai Hua, who was beside him, and asked her about the situation of the Lu clan over the years. Bai Hua also explained everything to Xiao Yan in detail, including how the relationship between Sea Cloud Palace and Qingyang City had deteriorated to such an extent. On the other side, while Bai Hua was still describing the development of the Lu clan to Xiao Yan in detail, somewhere in the southwest border, in a magnificent large hall, 3 broken jade plates were lying in the palm of a black-haired middle-aged man. At this moment, the middle-aged man's face was unusually gloomy. Chen Yan, Wu Xinglong, and Mu Han, they actually all, died. Chapter 1132. After Wu Kuei's departure, the cold-faced Fu Yulong sat down on the steps behind him with a thump. His face sank once again. He had never thought that even Wu Kuei would come knocking on his door at a time like this. Was he looking down on him? There was also the death of Mu Han and the other two. The Green Sun City had not been conquered even after attacking for a long time. This time, they had even lost 3 mainstays of the Sea Cloud Palace. This also meant that there was probably an extremely powerful person hiding in the Green Sun City. Just from the fact that the person was able to kill 2 origin transformation experts and a Class 5 formation master, their cultivation had probably reached returnance. If that was the case, nothing would have been strange. Otherwise, he really would have refused to believe that a single origin transformation expert would have been able to kill off an entire group of people. Returnance, huh? It looks like I need to pay a personal visit to Azure Sun City. Fu Yulong could not help but exhale deeply when he thought up to there. Sharp killing intent flashed through the depths of his eyes. It did not matter whether there were returnance experts in Azure Sun City or not. This time, no one could stop his determination to take Azure Sun City. Anyone who tried to stop him would die, even if they were returnance experts. While Fu Yulong was preparing to leave for Qingyang City, 2 figures rushed out of the Southern Region Alchemist Alliance one after the other. They swiftly flew towards the southwest border. On the other side of Qingyang City, some of the people who had left the city had once again returned following the cessation of the battle. After the joint effort of the people from the Lu clan, Qingyang City had once again returned to its original state within a short couple of days. Of course, the person who had contributed the most was undoubtedly Xiao Yan. By relying on Xiao Yan's enormous cultivation, it was extremely easy for him to build a city on flat land. It was also because of Xiao Yan's intervention that those people who had returned to the city felt a great shock at his tactics while feeling curious about this strong person who had suddenly appeared. Just as Qingyang City was restored to its original appearance, a tall middle-aged man in a brocade robe rushed over from a place far away from Qingyang City and appeared in the sky above Qingyang City. When this person arrived, Xiao Yan, Bai Hua, and the others who had just rested in the Lu family were alarmed once again. Soon after, a few streaks of light shot into the sky, attracting the attention of the people below. Gazes filled with surprise and annoyance constantly swept past the people in the sky. They had already become rather impatient from the endless battle and the constant destruction of the city. If it were not for the fact that their cultivations were lacking, they probably would have charged up long ago. The person leading the group from Qingyang City in the sky was surprisingly Xiao Yan. Behind him were Bai Hua, Zhongli, and the others in that order. The group of people approached menacingly and stood before the middle-aged man, and their gazes that were filled with solemn expression ceaselessly swept the middle-aged man up and down. Zhongli and the others actually noticed to their shock that even with their cultivations, they were actually unable to see through the cultivation of this person before them. It should be known that other than Xiao Yan, who was a little special, he was even able to clearly sense Bai Hua's cultivation. However, the arrival of this fellow actually caused him to be unable to see through his qi. In other words, his cultivation was definitely much stronger than Bai Hua's. A returnance expert. When he thought of this, Zhongli could not help but cry out in surprise. When Lu Huabai and the others behind him heard the words that came out of Zhongli's mouth, their faces instantly revealed extremely shocked expressions. A returnance expert. Is he also a member of the Sea Cloud Palace? According to what I know, the Sea Cloud Palace only has one returnance expert, and that's their palace master, Jian Chenside. Then wouldn't this person be, ha 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 ha, looks like even the rural Azure Sun City knows about the great reputation of my Sea Cloud Palace. That's right, I'm the palace master of the Sea Cloud Palace, Fu Yulong. The reason why I've personally come to the Azure Sun City today is to reclaim our lost territory as well as to avenge my loyal subordinates who died. Fu Yulong could not help but grin when he heard what Lu Huabai and the others said. It was an extremely cold smile. He glanced past the group of people before stopping on Xiao Yan in the end. He squinted his eyes slightly and stared at him deeply before slowly saying, "Kid, I can feel that you're different from me. Boy, I can feel that you are different from them. Although I can't explain why, you are the first person to make me feel this way in so many years. If you are willing to join my Sea Cloud Palace, then today, this palace lord can spare your life and even give you great benefits. How about it?" Xiao Yan could not help but raise an eyebrow when he heard Fu Yulong's words. Clearly, Fu Yulong's intentions were the same as the people from before. They had all come to cause trouble, yet he was actually trying to rope him in right in front of them. Was he not just a little too stupid? I don't think that's necessary. I don't have a habit of betraying my friends. Ugh, Xiao Yan's straightforward reply caused Fu Yulong to be momentarily stunned. He immediately laughed dryly and said, "It's fine. You're a young man after all. It's good that you have such thoughts and actions, but I still want you to consider it carefully. However, the person I'm looking for right now isn't you, but the returnance expert who has been hiding in Azure Sun City all this time." Fu Yulong smiled confidently as he slowly scanned the city below. However, he failed to notice the stunned expressions of the people around him. Since when had a returnance expert appeared in Azure Sun City? Very soon, Fu Yulong's face gradually sank. After searching for a while, he actually failed to sense the presence of the returnance expert who had killed the three of them. He found this hard to believe. How is this possible? He killed the three of them, so how is it possible that he didn't leave behind any traces at all? There's only their presence in the city. Of course it's impossible for there to be anyone else's presence because those three bastards died to our hands in the first place. Bai Hua could not help but snicker when she heard Fu Yulong's words. Her voice was filled with mockery. The three of them had clearly died to Xiao Yan, yet this guy actually believed that someone else had killed them. He was just stupid. When Bai Hua said these words, Fu Yulong's expression abruptly changed. He instantly lifted his gaze and looked at Bai Hua. With a face full of disbelief, he said in a deep voice, "What did you say?" Chapter 1133. Under Xiao Yan's probing, the poison in Lian Er's body had already spread throughout her entire body. The powerful poison was almost solid, and even his heavenly flame was unable to easily disperse it. Lian Er's condition was much worse than he had imagined. How can this be? Not only did the poison invade the qi vortex, it even borrowed the girl's do qi to become stronger. I can't believe such a thing happened. Ch. The poison in Lian Er's body suddenly agglomerated just as Xiao Yan quietly sensed that something was wrong in his heart. It forcefully swallowed the heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had inserted into Lian Er's body. It even moved along their palms and invaded Xiao Yan's body, causing Xiao Yan to immediately release his hand, which was holding Lian Er's hand. At the same time, his other hand hurriedly grabbed the wrist of his left hand. A ferocious heavenly flame immediately surged and incinerated the poison that had invaded his palm. God damn it! How can this be? Xiao Yan never imagined that the poison would take the initiative to attack his heavenly flame. Moreover, the poison was so powerful that even he found it difficult to deal with it. The expressions of Bai Hua and Zhou Tai by the side involuntarily changed when they saw Xiao Yan suddenly being forced back. The two of them hurriedly shifted their gazes to Xiao Yan as the Genesis Qi in their bodies instantly rose as a precaution. However, the seemingly absent-minded Xiao Yan had placed all his attention on Lian Er. To be more precise, he was focused on the terrifying poison in her body. He had no time to pay attention to the two people whose expressions had abruptly changed. Plop. After being quiet for a moment, Xiao Yan once again attacked. A puff sound was heard as a pale blue flame suddenly rose from his right palm. The fierce high temperature instantly incinerated the poison fog that was a little closer. Even the temperature within the dark room had been raised significantly at this moment. Zhou Tai's eyes revealed a look of surprise as he gazed at the rising flame in Xiao Yan's palm. He had not paid much attention to it before, but now that the flame was bursting with power, he finally noticed that Xiao Yan's heavenly flame seemed to be very different from the one he had seen before. Whether it was in terms of aura, power, or the domineering degree of the flame, it was no longer the same as the one he had seen before. Even its color had changed greatly, as if the entire heavenly flame had undergone some sort of transformation. What has this kid been through all these years? Xiao Yan quietly said in his heart. Soon after, he controlled the pale blue-colored flame in his palm. His palm faced downward as it slowly approached the smooth forehead of Lian Er, who was lying on the ice bed. Bzz. The moment Xiao Yan's palm made contact with Lian Er's forehead, Lian Er's body uncontrollably trembled. At the same time, a circle of purple-black poison qi violently spread in all directions with her body at the center. Bzz bzz bzz. Soon after, however, the four flames that were suspended at the four corners of the ice bed suddenly emitted a dazzling glow as the poison gas swept over. Blazing high temperatures instantly intertwined from the four corners. The pale blue flames transformed into an enormous fire net that forcefully burned and swallowed the poison gas that was spreading outwards. What a domineering woeful poison body. If not for Xiao Yan's heavenly flame having a natural restraining effect, it would not have been so easy to suppress it. Sensing the strength of the poison qi, Zhou Tai's expression could not help but change slightly. At the same time, his gaze once again swept across the ice bed that was enveloped in flames. His gaze paused on Lian Er's body. He could not help but ask Bai Hua in confusion. What is he trying to do? The flame did not look like a formation and did not have any suppressive effect. At most, it could only block the poison qi released from Lian Er's body. But what did this mean? Detoxification. Bai Hua narrowed her eyes and slowly swept her gaze across Lian, who was lying on the ice bed in front of her. A look of hope surged in her eyes. She believed that with Xiao Yan's help, Lian would definitely be able to wake up. When Zhou Tai heard Bai Hua's words, an expression of disbelief immediately appeared on his old face. The woeful poison body was an innate constitution and there was no cure for it. How could a heavenly flame be used to detoxify it? However, although Zhou Tai was unwilling to admit it, when he saw the serious expression on Xiao Yan's face, his heart gradually calmed down. He could understand that Xiao Yan would never do anything that he was not confident in. Furthermore, Hadn't Xiao Yan always been breaking his understanding of this world? Perhaps it was time for the old ideas in his heart to change. Bzz, Lian Er's delicate body was still trembling violently, uncontrollably. Waves of extremely terrifying poison qi surged out from her body, especially on her delicate and pretty face. The dense poison qi turned her entire face into a dense black color. Lian Er's delicate lips, which had already turned purple-black in color, opened uncontrollably. Her throat emitted a strange hoarse cry. The poison wildly agglomerated together, appearing just like a black-colored poisonous snake that pounced toward Xiao Yan's hand, which was imprinted on Lian Er's forehead. This thing actually has self-awareness. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's pupils suddenly shrank. Then, he clenched his teeth and the light blue flame suddenly became even more ferocious. As it rapidly spread, it seemed to have turned into a flaming lion and fiercely tore at the poison qi. Extinguish. Soon, the flames completely enveloped Lian Er's delicate body. The heavenly flame rose, releasing a high temperature that dispelled the surrounding poison qi. The flames almost filled the entire dark room. In a moment, the poison qi that originally filled the dark room dissipated, and the strange smell in the air also gradually disappeared. Invisibly, there seemed to be an additional breath of life. Bang! After a short exchange, Xiao Yan crushed the black poisonous snake. The raging flames quickly rushed up like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, completely refining this ball of poison qi. Even though this was the case, the emotions in Xiao Yan's heart did not relax. This poison force already possessed its own consciousness. This was the first time that he had seen such a thing. If he did not treat it carefully, it was likely that it would cause quite a great harm to Lian Er. This was something that he did not wish to see. When Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was once again injected into Lian Er's body, the previous scene happened again. The poison qi in Lian Er's body seemed to become even more ferocious. Facing Xiao Yan's heavenly flame, it was not afraid at all. Under the repeated attacks, even Xiao Yan felt quite uncomfortable. After a long while, the heavenly flame was still unable to expel the poison qi in Lian Er's body. This inevitably caused Xiao Yan to frown. If he forcefully expelled it, Xiao Yan was worried that it would harm Lian Er's body. However, if he let it go like this, he would definitely not be able to expel the poison. This caused Xiao Yan to be in a dilemma. Chapter 1134. His icy gaze caused Bai Hua's body to stiffen as an icy chill rose from the bottom of her heart. Even the circulating Genesis qi in her body could not help but turn sluggish. Only then did she remember that the other party was a returnance expert. There's no need to look for them. I'm the one who killed them. If you plan on taking revenge, feel free to come find me. I'll accompany you to the end. Xiao Yan's expression immediately sank when he sensed that something was amiss. He stepped in front of Bai Hua, blocking Fu Yulong's path. At the same time, the Genesis qi in his body rapidly circulated, ready to defend against the person before him at all times. You're saying that you killed the three of them? Fu Yulong's expression involuntarily changed when he heard Xiao Yan's words. Although the Xiao Yan in front of him felt a little different from an ordinary origin transformation expert, he was ultimately still an advanced origin transformation expert. It was impossible for him to kill Mu Han and the other two by himself. Just you? Fu Yulong suspiciously narrowed his eyes as he stared at Xiao Yan. Killing intent abruptly flashed in the depths of his eyes when he saw the latter's calm and steady face. Swish. Since you're the one who killed them, you'll have to pay the price for what you've done. Fu Yulong's icy voice suddenly rang out. Almost at the same time, his hand had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan's face, viciously swatting it down. The wind from his palm caused a numbing sensation to appear on Xiao Yan's face. Soon after, the hand viciously passed through the center of Xiao Yan's head. An afterimage. When his palm passed through Xiao Yan's afterimage, Fu Yulong could not help but cry out in surprise. Soon after, his body abruptly turned around on the spot and his palm violently slammed toward an empty space where there was no one. The powerful strength caused the empty space to tremble. Boom! As the palm fell, a large piece of pitch-black long robe suddenly appeared in the originally formless space. Soon after, it was violently shattered by the palm. The figure behind it hurriedly retreated once again, barely dodging Fu Yulong's attack. Humph, you really do have some skills. No wonder you dare to say such words. However, if this is all you have, it's still far from enough. Surprise could not help but flash through Fu Yulong's eyes when he saw Xiao Yan dodge his attacks twice. Xiao Yan's strength was extraordinary to be able to dodge the attacks of a returnance expert as an origin transformation expert. However, a returnance expert was still a returnance expert after all. The difference in strength between the two of them was not just a matter of a few moves. Chi! Following the sound of breaking air, when Xiao Yan's figure once again stood in the air, Fu Yulong's figure strangely appeared again. Moreover, the speed at which he appeared was actually faster than Xiao Yan. Dysentery palm. Under such a close distance, even Xiao Yan was unable to dodge Fu Yulong's palm. With no other choice, he could only display the giant elephant skill with all his strength and rely on the golden body of the giant elephant skill to block Fu Yulong's palm. Bang! The heavy palm strike landed on Xiao Yan's crossed arms. The heavy force directly blew Xiao Yan away. Even with the power of the giant elephant technique, a shallow imprint still appeared on the golden avatar. That's a pretty good Do skill. It can actually block my dysentery palm. Looks like you really are quite capable. There's even less reason for me to let you live. Fu Yulong cried out in surprise. Soon after, his attack became even more swift and violent. His body flashed like a ghost as he repeatedly flashed and flew around Xiao Yan's body. He used all his strength to repeatedly send Xiao Yan's body flying and smashing down. Although Bai Hua and the others wanted to go forward and help, with their agility and speed, they were unable to participate in a battle of this level. Thus, they could only helplessly stand in their original spots and bitterly watch. Bang! 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 In the sky, Xiao Yan's golden avatar was constantly blown away by Fu Yulong. He did not even have the opportunity to fight back. Fu Yulong was different from Hall Master Chang. He had reached mid-returnance and was so powerful that Hall Master Chang could not compare to him. Once he took action, even with Xiao Yan's strength, he would not be Fu Yulong's opponent if he could not find an opportunity. However, Xiao Yan did not seem to be able to find an opportunity to fight back. Bang! Fu Yulong sneered after sending Xiao Yan flying with another punch. He did not even need to use his full strength against an opponent like Xiao Yan. This was the difference between origin transformation and returnance experts. Brat, since you are the one who killed Mu Han and the other two, even if you are quite talented, I have no choice but to kill you today. You sure have a lot to say. Xiao Yan had already accumulated quite a lot of anger after being punched so many times. Now that he finally had a chance to catch his breath, he obviously would not let it slip by so easily. Xiao Yan's feet stomped heavily on empty air as the explosive cry was emitted from his mouth. His body instantly transformed into a black ray of light and arrived in front of Fu Yulong in the blink of an eye. From top to bottom, a fist violently smashed toward Fu Yulong's head. Heh, you actually still have the strength to fight back. Fu Yulong sneered when he saw this. He was filled with disdain inside. He gently raised his right hand and met Xiao Yan's punch with his palm. Swish! However, the instant a black-colored light curtain suddenly appeared, Xiao Yan's body appeared behind Fu Yulong in a ghost-like manner. His steel-like fist heavily smashed into Fu Yulong's head. Bang! Fu Yulong's body was thrown back 1,000 feet by Xiao Yan's punch after the attack landed. At the same time, his heart was filled with a rich shock. This brat, before he had even finished speaking, Xiao Yan's fist landed again, blowing Fu Yulong away once more. Bang! 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 The same thing happened again, except this time, the hunter and the prey had swapped places. The several hundred intense collisions did not improve Xiao Yan's mood at all. Instead, it became even heavier. This was because Xiao Yan could clearly sense that Fu Yulong had not received any substantial damage from the several hundred collisions. His iron fist, which had never failed before, had lost most of its brilliance against Fu Yulong, a mid-returnance expert. Clang! Finally, Fu Yulong struck out again. The huge, golden fist was stopped by Fu Yulong's hand. Fu Yulong's expression did not change at all as he allowed the powerful force to erupt from his hand. His lips curled into a sneer, and soon, an even more powerful force surged out from his hand. Bang! The vicious force turned into a pillar of energy in a single moment, forcefully dispersing Xiao Yan's mammoth technique. This was also the first time someone had managed to destroy Xiao Yan's mammoth technique in a direct confrontation. Chapter 1135. Boom! At the same time that the giant elephant's skill was broken, Xiao Yan's body was also violently sent flying by the remaining force. The powerful shockwave violently collided with Xiao Yan's body. At this moment, Xiao Yan felt an unbearable intense pain from every part of his body. It was as if all the bones in his body were about to be broken. Soon after, Xiao Yan fell like a meteor. In the end, Bai Hua caught him in time when he was about to hit the ground. Bai Hua's heart sank when she saw the pale-faced Xiao Yan. She never thought that even with Xiao Yan's strength, he was unable to fend off Fu Yulong. Fu Yulong was just too powerful. The difference between origin transformation and mid-returnance was just too great. It was not something that could be made up for with battle prowess alone. Although Xiao Yan's strength was enough for him to face early returnance opponents, it was only enough to keep him undefeatable. Defeating his opponents was extremely difficult. The reason why Xiao Yan was able to kill the returnance hall master Yun back then was because of the suppressive effects of the heavenly flame. Coupled with the fact that the hall master was careless and did not pay attention to Xiao Yan's way of the void, she was suppressed by Xiao Yan the entire time. However, it was different this time around. Regardless of whether it was in terms of cultivation or other aspects, this Fu Yulong was stronger than Xiao Yan. All of Xiao Yan's attacks were blocked by Fu Yulong's powerful cultivation. Even the giant elephant's skill was unable to do anything to him. The speed that Xiao Yan was so proud of in the past was not even worth mentioning in front of Fu Yulong. In short, the gap between Xiao Yan and Fu Yulong's cultivation was so large that it was shocking. Xiao Yan was destined to have no chance of winning this battle. Hee, kid, you really are a surprising person. Not only is your battle prowess far greater than your current cultivation, you even possess the way of the void. If it weren't for the enmity between us, I really would be willing to befriend you. Once you continue to grow, you'll definitely become one of the most powerful experts on the continent in the future. It's just a pity that you won't be able to live to that day, Fu Yulong said indifferently. Fu Yulong said faintly. There was a tinge of pity in his tone. Even a ruthless person would have a heart of love for talent. However, this kind of love could only be placed on his own people. Since the other party was an enemy, no matter how outstanding the other party's talent was, he was destined not to let him go. As the saying goes, being merciful to the enemy is being cruel to yourself. Fu Yulong had a deep understanding of this sentence. Swish! In the blink of an eye, Fu Yulong had already appeared in front of Bai Hua. The latter was currently supporting Xiao Yan in her arms. Fu Yulong's appearance instantly made Bai Hua's expression darken. Genesis Chi frantically surged in her body as she viciously sent a palm strike towards the person before her. Fu Yulong did not even glance at Bai Hua's attack. He flipped his hand and sent a slap flying. Surging Genesis Chi immediately appeared out of nowhere, easily sending Bai Hua flying like a storm. Fu Yulong's eyes never left Xiao Yan from the beginning to the end. Kid, I can feel that there should be even more secrets in your body. Since you don't have the chance to use them, I'll personally unearth them. With an icy chuckle, a look of mockery flitted across Fu Yulong's eyes. The 5 fingers of his right hand came together like a knife as sharp Genesis Chi gathered at his fingertips. It tore through the air and viciously stabbed towards Xiao Yan's chest. If this attack landed, Xiao Yan's chest would be split open on the spot, and he would undoubtedly die. Bzz. However, Xiao Yan's faintly shut eyes abruptly opened in anger a split second later. Raging flames immediately rose from the surface of his body as blazing heat spread, causing even the surrounding space to distort and crack from the heat. At almost the same time, astonishment was revealed on Fu Yulong's face once again as he watched the flames in front of him transform into a fire dragon and charge towards him. His sleeves swept out as Genesis Chi surged out as his figure rapidly retreated several dozen feet away. Only when he saw the fire dragon and Genesis Chi destroy each other did his gaze land back on Xiao Yan's body, which had already turned into a flaming figure. The astonishment in Fu Yulong's heart grew as he stared intently at the raging flames rising from Xiao Yan's body. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that these flames were undoubtedly a heavenly flame. It's actually a heavenly flame. This brat is really extraordinary. He can even obtain such a shocking thing. Looks like, humph, I can't let you live today. The greed in Fu Yulong's heart immediately soared when he saw the heavenly flame. The attractiveness of this thing was much more sought after than most training resources. If he was able to obtain the heavenly flame on Xiao Yan's body, he would have the hope of raising his strength once again. At that time, he might not even need to be afraid of the fellow behind Wu Kuei. At that time, he could treat any agreement or whatever dog shit faction as nothing. You want my heavenly flame? That'll depend on whether you can take it or not. The moment he raised his head, purple gold light immediately flickered in Xiao Yan's flame-filled eyes. At almost the same time, a faint, strange pressure was released from Xiao Yan's body. Even Xiao Yan's cultivation rose once again. He was only a step away from the returnant stage. This is the unique bloodline pressure of the magical beast clan? How does this kid possess it? Fu Yulong's face could not help but change once again when he sensed the strange pressure. He had never thought that Xiao Yan, as a human, would be able to release a bloodline pressure that only the magical beast clan possessed. It was just too shocking. However, following that, something even more shocking happened. Xiao Yan's presence had actually broken through to returnants in a single stroke. Why has this kid's presence suddenly? Fu Yulong became even more shocked by the sudden change. First, it was the appearance of the heavenly flame. Then, it was the unique bloodline pressure of the magical beast clan. Now, even Xiao Yan's presence had strangely risen to returnants. Even if it was a secret technique, it should not be so exaggerated. You want to know my secret? Then I'll tell you right now. A fiery glow rose from Xiao Yan's eyes as his body suddenly flashed. The instant his feet stepped on the air, his body had already disappeared. When he reappeared, a fist wrapped in Genesis Chi had already arrived in front of Fu Yulong. Such frightening speed caused even someone of Fu Yulong's cultivation to be involuntarily shocked in his heart. Boom! The punch landed. This time, Fu Yulong, who had remained calm the entire time, was finally blown away by Xiao Yan's punch. He could not help but reveal a grave expression. Although the Genesis Chi had been completely blocked and neutralized by Xiao Yan's punch, the frightening strength had caused his right arm, which he had used to block, to instantly lose all feeling. It was impossible for him to even lift it for a short period of time. The strength that Xiao Yan had displayed at this moment finally caused him to feel a heavy pressure. Just as Fu Yulong's body paused and before he could do anything, Xiao Yan's body once again appeared in front of him in a ghost-like manner. A pair of eyes that were filled with flames stared at him with an icy coldness. Looking down from above, the killing intent in his eyes was not hidden at all. Arrogant expert, accept the baptism of my insignificant power. Chapter 1136. The merciless bombardment mercilessly slammed into Fu Yulong's body, and the powerful force shattered the surrounding space in an instant. Fu Yulong's body was smashed into the city below, and the streets that had just been repaired a few days ago were instantly destroyed. Wide cracks rapidly spread like a spider web, and the pedestrians in the city were forced to flee. Dust rose in all directions, enveloping a small region within the city. No one could clearly see the situation within. However, they could sense that there was an extremely furious fellow within the dust cloud. Waves of terrifying energy were being released from his body, causing the surrounding land to tremble slightly. Phew, boy, the power you possess is indeed much stronger than I imagined, but I still say the same thing. You killed the people of my sea cloud palace, so you must die today. Fu Yulong's deep voice sounded from within the dust cloud. At the same time, the sound of bones colliding could be heard. Surging Genesis Chi abruptly unfurled from within, instantly sweeping away the dust cloud. At the same time, Fu Yulong's body shot out from the ruins like a cannonball. With a bang, he arrived in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye and ruthlessly collided with him. Xiao Yan similarly did not show any weakness in the face of Fu Yulong's attack. Both of his fists swung as the Genesis Chi in his body surged out without reservation. Genesis Chi shot out from his palms as earth-shaking explosions continuously sounded. They were like waves of thunder as they reverberated across the land. Even the city below faintly trembled because of these loud noises. In the sky, the battle between Xiao Yan and Fu Yulong grew increasingly intense. As they clashed, Fu Yulong clenched his fist and surging Genesis Chi immediately gathered, transforming into a large blade in the blink of an eye. With a flip of his hand, he repeatedly slashed at various parts of Xiao Yan's body. Clang! The broad blade landed on Xiao Yan's waist, and the blade, which was mostly blocked by the heavenly fire, finally slashed at Xiao Yan's body with a powerful force. However, what was exchanged was a crisp sound like metal colliding. Even Fu Yulong's hand, which was holding the hilt of the blade, couldn't help but tremble. Startled, Fu Yulong cast a sideways glance and saw a layer of strange purple-gold snake-like scales. It was these scales that had blocked the blade in his hand, and the power contained in the blade couldn't fully erupt. What? What the hell is this thing? Fu Yulong's heart was immediately startled when he saw this scene. By the time he recovered, a large black-colored ruler had appeared in Xiao Yan's hand at an unknown time. When the large ruler violently swept in front of Xiao Yan, its heavy strength sent the large blade in Fu Yulong's hand flying. It even shattered a portion of the blade. The remaining strength on the ruler even forcefully cracked the web between Fu Yulong's thumb and index finger. Fu Yulong's expression sank. His heart immediately felt a kind of pressure that he had never felt before. The strangeness of Xiao Yan in front of him was something that he had never seen before in his life. Even the faction behind Wu Kuei was not like this. Not only did Xiao Yan possess great training talent, but every single thing that he possessed was so powerful that it caused others to be afraid. Great Way of Cloud Water, activate. Fu Yulong let out a low cry from his mouth and immediately flew backwards. He rotated his hand and a green-white Great Way power immediately agglomerated in his palm, completely wrapping around the blade in his hand. After which, the blade swept up and down and swung to the left and right. Immediately, two energy pillars that were agglomerated from the Great Way power shot out and violently collided with the giant ruler in Xiao Yan's hand. However, just as the two energy pillars landed on the giant ruler, a strange energy suddenly appeared. The two energy pillars that were agglomerated from the Great Way power seemed to have charged into the endless void and instantly disappeared. The appearance of this scene caused Fu Yulong's heart to be aghast. He had always had great confidence in his Great Way of Cloud Water. It was like cloud or water, light but tough. Not only did it possess an extraordinary attacking strength, it was also able to erode most Do techniques. Once it came into contact with an opponent's body, it would bring about great trouble for the opponent. If it were to land on a weapon, it could even erode the weapon. However, this was the first time in history that a situation like today had occurred. Is it the great way of the void again? In the blink of an eye, Fu Yulong thought of this. At the same time, he was surprised that Xiao Yan's usage of the Great Way power had reached such a level. Normally speaking, there was a portion of origin transformation experts who were unable to comprehend the power of laws. However, even those who had comprehended the power of laws would have an extremely shallow understanding of the power of laws. At the very most, they would be able to borrow the energy from the laws to assist themselves. However, Xiao Yan's ability to freely manipulate and gather the power of laws was something that even the current Fu Yulong was unable to do for a long period of time. Of course, Fu Yulong did not know that Xiao Yan was not like most people who only comprehended the Great Way power after reaching the Dou Emperor realm. He had already begun to come into contact with the Great Way power when he was still a half-emperor. Coupled with the fact that he had been using it for a long time, his control over the Great Way power had far surpassed Fu Yulong's. Although the current Xiao Yan was unable to use the Great Way of the Void to block a few powerful high-class Dou techniques, it was more than enough to deal with these few attacks. 7-layer heaven-breaking ruler. Xiao Yan ignored the surprise on Fu Yulong's face. He lifted the enormous ruler in his hand high up. His arms waved and the enormous ruler flipped. It was like a huge wheel that swiftly rotated around Xiao Yan's body. In the blink of an eye, 7 startling ruler glows shot out one after another. After which, they merged into one and carried an even greater strength as they violently charged toward Fu Yulong. So what? I don't believe that your Great Way of the Void can be maintained like this forever. Prepare to accept your fate. Water and Sky Line. Fu Yulong's expression darkened at the sight of the majestic ruler light shooting towards him. A fierce look flashed in his eyes as he swung the broadsword in his hand. Genesis Chi violently surged as the Great Way of the cloud and water gathered on the broadsword. His left hand viciously swept across the back of the broadsword, leaving behind a faint line in the air. It was like a ray of light as it collided with the startling attack. Bzz. Soon after, the world shook. In front of Xiao Yan's shocked eyes, that thread cut through his 7-layer sky-breaking ruler. It was just like a sharp blade cutting through a thick piece of paper. Its powerful strength had actually broken his 7-layer sky-breaking ruler. Chapter 1137. In front of Xiao Yan's shocked eyes, the majestic ruler glow formed by the 7-layered heaven-breaking ruler was split into two by this thin filament-like line. Even the invisible empty space was torn apart. However, due to the part that was cut being too small, it was difficult to distinguish it with one's naked eye. Boom! Soon after, the power contained in the two halves of the majestic ruler light was no longer under Xiao Yan's control. It suddenly exploded in the sky, turning into waves of hot energy hurricanes that swept out. In this storm, the thin thread did not slow down at all as it rapidly flew forward. Its target was Xiao Yan. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's expression could not help but change once again. This so-called water sky-breaking ruler had merged with the power of the Great Way. Its might was not something that an ordinary Dou skill could compare with. Even the 7-layer sky-breaking ruler had been broken by this thing. Its destructive power was naturally self-evident. Source-breaking needle. With Xiao Yan's current skill, it was likely that the only thing that could contend with this thing was his breaking source needle. With a fierce pinch of his hands, 10 source-breaking needles immediately landed in his palm. Subsequently, under Xiao Yan's control, the 10 steel needles immediately flew forward. They were as fast as lightning. In an instant, they had already collided with the water sky-breaking needle. The moment the sharp tip of the needle collided with the tiny blade, the space around the two instantly crumbled. Numerous spiderweb-like cracks appeared out of nowhere, and the entire space became extremely distorted. Soon after, with a bang, it shattered into a pitch-black endless space. This is the Great Way solidification. You are actually able to achieve the Great Way solidification. Fu Yulong's expression immediately changed when he sensed the special power from the source-breaking needle. He could clearly sense that it was the presence of the power of the ways. To no surprise, the strange, black steel needle was a product of the Great Way solidification. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for a weapon to possess the power of the ways. Since it was the Great Way solidification, Fu Yulong became even more shocked. With his comprehension of the power of the ways, he could only achieve the Great Way solidification after breaking through to returnance. Even though that was the case, it still made him even more arrogant before others. After all, even if he could comprehend the power of the ways, it would still be extremely difficult to use it like an extension of his body. Since he could succeed, it obviously gave him something to be proud of. However, just from how condensed the 10 pitch-black steel needles were, Xiaoyan's control over the Great Way solidification was extremely proficient. This was not something that could be achieved in a single day, nor was it something that someone who had temporarily reached returnance with the help of a secret technique could achieve. As a result, Xiaoyan's comprehension of the power of the ways had probably exceeded Fu Yulong's imagination. This kid is much more terrifying than I imagined him to be. While feeling shocked by Xiaoyan's true battle prowess, Fu Yulong dared not to be careless. He was afraid that the kid would take out something even more terrifying. If that happened, it would truly be a disaster. Unknowingly, the mid-returnance Fu Yulong began to treat Xiaoyan seriously, as if he was not facing an origin transformation kid but a returnance expert who was no weaker than him. The frightening fighting strength that Xiaoyan had displayed was already sufficient to cause him to be shocked. It had even reached the point where he had to face Xiaoyan head-on. At this moment, even Fu Yulong's heart appeared to be repeatedly warning himself. If he really dared to treat this black-robed, young man in front of him with an ordinary heart, he would definitely pay an extremely painful price. The cost of the 10 needles was finally enough to break through the barrier. The remaining 3 steel needles continued towards Fu Yulong with great force. Fu Yulong's eyes immediately narrowed when he saw this. He raised his right hand and twisted his palm. Surging Genesis Qi immediately condensed in his palm, forming a Genesis Qi barrier in an attempt to block the needles. Clang! 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 Fu Yulong's expression changed once again as 3 clanging sounds rang out. He suddenly felt a piercing pain in his palm, and when he looked over, he was shocked to see that the 3 needles had pierced straight into the Genesis Qi shield he had condensed in his palm. Even the tips of the needles had pierced into his palm, causing a small piece of flesh to be crushed by the power contained in the needles. Fu Yulong never imagined that something that had basically been destroyed would be able to injure him. While he was shocked, he also felt anger. He was a mid-returnance expert, yet he had actually suffered at the hands of an origin transformation kid time and time again. He had not even managed to defeat the kid even now. This was an utter humiliation. Boom! Fu Yulong clenched his hand and green veins protruded. A powerful force actually forcefully shattered the 3 steel needles in his hand. After which, Fu Yulong lifted his pair of extremely icy cold eyes. His gaze stared at Xiaoyan in front of him. A killing intent appeared deep within his eyes. Kid, you're the most peculiar person I've ever seen in my life. At the same time, you're also someone I must kill. Today, whether it's to avenge the experts of my Sea Cloud Palace or for other reasons, you must die. A low and deep voice was spat out from Fu Yulong's mouth. At the same time, his body suddenly flashed. When the sound of rushing wind appeared, Fu Yulong's body had already appeared in front of Xiaoyan. The broadsword in his hand was waved horizontally. The sharp blade appeared to be about to cut the invisible space into 2. The sharp wind blew until one's face felt a little painful despite being a great distance away. Xiaoyan naturally did not dare to be the slightest bit careless in the face of this ferocious attack of Fu Yulong. He waved the enormous ruler in his hand at the same time as his body pulled back. The heavenly flame swiftly covered the ruler's body and lifted the broadsword that was coming at him from below, causing Fu Yulong's attack to miss. Soon after, he flipped his hand and swung it horizontally. As Xiao Yan's body flipped, he dodged a couple of Fu Yulong's attacks. Finally, both parties raised their weapons and began to collide intensely. Sparks flew and ear-shaking collision sounds repeatedly sounded. The invisible space collapsed repeatedly. However, the stalemate between the two of them did not appear to have an end. Bang! When the two of them put away their weapons, each of them assumed a fighting stance and fiercely clashed with each other. Bai Hua and the others could only watch from the side with dumbfounded expressions. The extremely fast movements of the two were so fast that even they could not see them clearly. Bang 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 bang. The heavy collision sounds were like muffled thunder. Wave after wave of turbulent energy ripples continuously swept across the empty space. The battle became more and more intense, causing people to be unable to see clearly. In the end, everyone, including Bai Hua and the rest in the sky, could only hear a series of intense collision sounds. However, they could not see any figures. Occasionally, they could only see two afterimages left behind by the intense collision between the two of them. One could imagine how intense the collision between the two of them was. This intense battle continued for nearly 4 hours. Until a certain moment, the two of them, who were fiercely colliding in the sky, suddenly stopped. The two of them each retreated 100 feet and faced each other from a distance. Their gazes intertwined and continued to clash in the empty space, as if an invisible battle was taking place. Quickly following this, the two of them paused for over 10 seconds before Xiao Yan's flushed face suddenly bent his body. A mouthful of fresh blood was involuntarily spat out from his mouth. His entire face had also turned pale at this moment. The long battle had ultimately exhausted all of the power in his body. At this moment, there was not much Genesis Qi left in Xiao Yan's body that could be used. His aura was extremely weak, and he no longer had the same domineering attitude as before. Instead, he looked like an arrow at the end of its flight. Cough cough cough. After Xiao Yan's expression changed, Fu Yulong finally couldn't help coughing violently. A fishy and sweet smell surged up from his throat, and it was only when blood dyed his lips red that he forcefully swallowed it back down. Although Xiao Yan's condition had become increasingly weak due to the delay of time in the earlier collision, he was still able to cause Fu Yulong to suffer quite a lot of pain by relying on the great strength of his physical body. Not only were more than half of the ribs on his upper body broken, but even the bones on his back had also suffered quite a lot of damage. The joints of his fingers had been forcefully broken. The bones in his left leg had also been shaken and broken because of the head-on collision with Xiao Yan. Even the bones in his head had also suffered varying degrees of damage. Of course, Xiao Yan was naturally even more miserable than him. When the Genesis Qi in his body was completely exhausted, he should have been captured by Fu Yulong. But with his powerful physical strength, he managed to break free from Fu Yulong's control, causing him to fall into a seriously injured state. Xiao Yan, who was seriously injured, and Fu Yulong, whose condition had declined greatly at this moment. This battle could really be described as tragic. It could also be considered a grand battle. Xiao Yan had used his late origin transformation cultivation to fight the mid-returnance expert Fu Yulong to such a state. He had traded his heavy injuries for Fu Yulong's wounds. This was enough to make Xiao Yan feel proud. On the other hand, Fu Yulong was filled with reluctance. He had never imagined that a mere origin transformation brat would be able to injure him, a returnance expert, to such a state. The two remained hovering in the air, but Fu Yulong's condition was clearly better than Xiao Yan's. If they continued fighting, Xiao Yan would definitely not be his opponent. Ha ha ha. Brat, you'll still die by my hands in the end. Fu Yulong panted heavily as he slowly circulated his Genesis Qi. His body swayed in the air as he made his way towards Xiao Yan. Since they had already reached such a crucial moment, he would be able to save himself a great deal of trouble if he could land another blow. However, it was also at this moment that Bai Hua and the people from the Lu family rapidly moved forward. They stood in front of Xiao Yan as they stared at Fu Yulong with eyes filled with killing intent. They rapidly circulated their dou qi, ready to attack Fu Yulong at any time under Bai Hua's lead. Fu Yulong was a returnance expert after all. His cultivation was far greater than theirs, so even with Bai Hua at the front, they were still uncertain. Even Bai Hua could not guarantee that she could stop Fu Yulong. However, if they were forced to do so, they would definitely fight for Xiao Yan even if it meant risking their lives. They would not hesitate even if their enemy was a returnance expert. Seeing this group of people suddenly flying over in front of him, Fu Yulong's pale face involuntarily revealed a shocked expression. It was unexpected that they actually dared to intervene for Xiao Yan even after things had already reached this stage. This point did indeed cause people to raise their eyebrows. At the very least, Fu Yulong had never seen or heard of anyone on the entire continent who would go to such lengths for someone else. Your courage is commendable, but do you really think that you can stop me just like that? The difference in cultivation isn't something that can be easily made up for with numbers. Even if you have twice as many people, you still won't be a match for me. He was a returnance expert after all. His pride gave him the strength and right to say something like that. Of course, if there was someone as terrifying as Xiao Yan in the group, everything would be different. Unfortunately, there was no such person. However, it was also at this moment that Fu Yulong, whose victory was in sight, suddenly had a drastic change in expression. His footsteps paused slightly, and then he quickly retreated. At the same time, he hurriedly raised his head and looked at a certain spot in the sky. The sunlight shone down, causing the people below to raise their heads and look up. Other than a black shadow, they could not see anything else. At this moment, Fu Yulong's face was solemn. His eyes narrowed as his gaze locked onto the figure in the sky. He had long since seen that aura, but what he did not expect was that this fellow would actually appear here. Fu Yulong, long time no see. I never thought that you'd reach such a state. Isn't it enough that you've caused trouble for them time and time again for the sake of Azure Sun City? You've actually come personally this time. You've even reduced yourself to such a horrible state for the sake of a city. Is it worth it? A laughter that was filled with boldness was transmitted over. When it landed in Fu Yulong's ears, it caused his face to involuntarily turn slightly green. On the other side, Zhongli and the rest frowned suspiciously when they heard this laughter. They seemed to have heard this voice somewhere before. However, they could only hear the voice at this moment. Hence, they were unable to recall the identity of this person for a moment. Since when did you have the right to interrupt me? I'd advise you not to interfere in today's matters, or I don't care if you're an elder of the Alchemist Alliance or not. I won't let you go. Chapter 1138. Fu Yulong, your tone is not small. No matter how big your Sea Cloud Palace is, how can it be bigger than the Alchemist Alliance? The actions of your Sea Cloud Palace over the past few years have been clearly seen by the other factions in the southern region. Before you prepare how to deal with me, I advise you to properly think about how to protect yourself. If it weren't for the Alchemist Alliance's rule not to easily intervene in the matters between the factions in the province, I'm afraid that your Sea Cloud Palace would have been annihilated long ago. High up in the sky, a loud laughter that contained a sneer sounded once again. Those words also caused Fu Yulong's expression to change. Although he was unwilling to admit it, there was no doubt that what this person said was the truth. In the past few years, the actions of Sea Cloud Palace had already affected the interests of the other factions in the southern region. Many factions hated Sea Cloud Palace to the core. However, due to the mutual restraint between the various factions, Sea Cloud Palace was temporarily in a stable state. However, Fu Yulong was also very clear in his heart that this so-called stability was only temporary. If he could not take advantage of the fact that those factions had yet to launch an attack on him to make himself stronger, then Sea Cloud Palace would have to face a storm-like attack in the future, or even destruction. Moreover, what was even more frightening than these factions was the person behind Wu Kuei. Compared to the other factions in the southern region, the person behind Wu Kuei could be said to be truly powerful. It was also because of this reason that even though Fu Yulong wished he could skin Wu Kuei alive, he still could not do so. Once he provoked the faction behind Wu Kuei, his fate would be even more miserable. Just thinking about that kind of result caused a chill to run down Fu Yulong's spine. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for his own survival or for the Sea Cloud Palace behind him, Fu Yulong could only continue to move forward. At this point, he already had no other choice. In front of him were the various great powers of the southern territory, but behind him was a colossus that he couldn't afford to offend no matter what. Unknowingly, Fu Yulong had already fallen into a bottomless abyss. Even he himself didn't know whether what awaited him in the future would be life or death. A ship that went out to sea would only travel further and further, and would no longer be able to see the path from which it came. If he did not continue to move forward, he would end up here before tomorrow. So, you're here today to stop me? After being silent for a long time, Fu Yulong finally let out a deep sigh. His body trembled slightly, before he slowly raised his head and spoke with a solemn expression. If you're attacking other people, I might be able to sit and watch. But since you're targeting Green City, then I have no choice but to come. The laughter once again sounded. At the same time, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from the human figure in the sky. After which, it swiftly enveloped the entire place. Immediately, an extremely frightening aura descended on the city below. When Bai Hua felt the pressure of this aura, a look of surprise flashed across her face. This person's cultivation was clearly similar to hers, but this aura was actually so tyrannical. It contained a domineering aura that caused people to feel fear in their hearts. If an expert of the same level were to fight, having fear in his heart would be extremely disadvantageous to the battle. Would be it if. What kind of secret does this Qingyang city have that even you would be attracted here? Fu Yulong's heart sank when he felt the pressure of the aura that descended from the sky. Even though he was aware of the tyrannical aura of the other party, the strange thing was that even though he was on guard, he could not help but feel fearful. As a result, the tone of his voice became much softer. This aura is. At the same time, when Zhongli and the rest felt the tyrannical aura of the aura, they were shocked. They quickly searched through the memories in their minds. Soon, a bald man with a burly body appeared in their memories. Cough cough, so it's Senior Zhou Tai. I didn't expect that you would come as well. Xiao Yan's face was pale as he stood on the ground. One of his hands was supporting Bai Hua who had come over. He lifted his head and eyed the black human figure in the sky. At this moment, the latter's body was swiftly descending and had arrived in front of Fu Yulong. Sunlight shone on the burly, bald figure wearing black alchemist robes. An old but familiar face was revealed. It was the former chief alchemist of the alchemist guild that Xiao Yan had met in the ancient city of Wilderness, Zhou Tai. However, Zhou Tai was very different from before. His aura had already reached the late origin transformation realm. Even his spiritual strength was abnormally powerful. It was likely that he would not lose out to Xiao Yan. This fellow was now a Tier 5 alchemist. A Tier 5 alchemist was a status that was quite high even in the alchemist guild. It was no wonder that Fu Yulong would reveal such an expression when he saw Zhou Tai. Zhou Tai, Fu Yulong's tone was extremely low and deep as he muttered. Fu Yulong coldly laughed when he heard this. His gaze swept over everyone on the ground below and involuntarily felt a little surprised when he saw Zhong Li's group. This continued until his gaze landed on Xiao Yan's body. When he saw that familiar face, Fu Yulong's eyes suddenly shrank. His entire body's movements instantly stilled. Even his breathing suddenly became sluggish. Immediately afterward, the color of ecstasy in his old eyes suddenly gushed out uncontrollably, and an uncontrollable smile appeared on his face. Xiao Yan, ha ha ha. I'm not mistaken, right? It really is you. When Gu Li and the rest found out about Xiao Yan's true identity, Zhou Tai naturally found out as well. Moreover, through them, Zhou Tai also found out about the relationship between Xiao Yan and Azure Sun City. It was also because of this that he had left the Alchemist Guild to come here when Azure Sun City was in trouble. Haha, you left the ancient Wildlands city without a word back then. When I returned, I only heard that you had brought people to beat up Mu Han. It's a pity that he was no longer in the ancient Wildlands city. Otherwise, I would definitely give him a proper greeting. Ignoring Fu Yulong, Zhou Tai only cared about himself as he laughed with Xiao Yan. Although he saw Fu Yulong's miserable appearance, there was not the slightest worry on his face. He believed that Fu Yulong, who could safely retreat from the lightning pool, would not be in trouble so easily. Cough cough. I'm really sorry. As for Mu Han, I already killed him a few days ago. Xiao Yan could not help but let out a dry chuckle when he heard Zhou Tai's words, a tired look appearing on his face. Since Zhou Tai had already appeared, there was no need for him to be overly worried. In addition, Bai Hua was also here, and he believed that they would be more than enough to deal with the similarly injured Fu Yulong. Surprise involuntarily flashed across Zhou Tai's face when he heard that Xiao Yan had already killed Mu Han. It was unexpected that the grudge from back then would actually be resolved so many years later. Moreover, some of the other matters from back then would once again collide with each other. The word fate was really difficult to find. Zhou Tai's eyes swiveled in thought as a faint smile emerged on his face. Soon after, he turned his head back, his gaze returning to Fu Yulong as he slowly said, "Originally, I should have given Xiao Yan a big present after seeing him, but after some thought, I think I should get rid of you first." You want to kill me? I'm afraid that you don't have the strength to do so. Fu Yulong's expression darkened when he saw Zhou Tai's gaze shoot towards him. As he retreated, all the remaining Genesis Qi in his body swiftly circulated as he cautiously stared at Zhou Tai. It's true that I can't kill you, but there's no need for me to do so. My goal is only to chase you away. I won't stop you if you want to return home, but don't blame me for taking action if you want to do something else. Zhou Tai's expression was frosty. His body jerked as Genesis Qi immediately surged out from his body, transforming into a wave of energy that churned in the air around him. The vast and mighty presence was enough to make one's heart tremble. Fu Yulong's heart sank at the sight of this. There was naturally no need for him to be afraid of facing two advanced origin transformation stage experts at the same time if he was at his peak. However, he was currently injured and his strength had been reduced by more than half. Although the remaining power would allow him to deal with these people before him, the price he would have to pay would be extremely heavy. However, if he did not take action, it would be even more difficult to deal with Xiao Yan the next time. If Xiao Yan counterattacked, Zhou Tai would likely be the one to be injured. The thought of Xiao Yan's strange methods made Zhou Tai feel an invisible pressure in his heart. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that there was no benefit to him no matter what he did. This made Fu Yulong feel troubled. After a moment of thought, a cold light flashed in Fu Yulong's eyes. He turned around and retreated with an ashen face. At the same time, the Genesis Qi in his body began to circulate. Zhou Tai secretly let out a sigh of relief when he saw Fu Yulong turn around and leave. Fu Yulong was a returnance expert after all. Even though he was quite injured, his cultivation was still there. If Zhou Tai insisted on fighting, it would be quite troublesome. Zhou Tai only withdrew his gaze when Fu Yulong's figure vanished from his sight. At the same time, Xiao Yan secretly relaxed his fingers that had been rubbing his storage ring. He was prepared at all times. The moment Fu Yulong launched a counterattack, Zhou Tai would definitely be his target. In order to guard against Fu Yulong's sneak attack, Xiao Yan was prepared to release the Northern King from his storage ring at all times. He believed that with the Northern King present, even if he could not deal with Fu Yulong, he would definitely be able to stop Fu Yulong's sneak attack. At the very least, he would be able to wait for Zhou Tai and the others to take action. Soon after, Xiao Yan directly sat down on the ground. He had already swallowed a pill earlier, but because he had always been on guard against Fu Yulong, the pill's medicinal effects had not completely spread. Only now could he finally relax and begin to refine the pill in his body. As the medicinal effects of the pill spread, the injuries within Xiao Yan's body also began to swiftly recover. Other than some of the more serious injuries that required more time to heal, the external injuries all over his body and the damaged qi paths within his body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bai Hua's anxious mood finally began to gradually relax when she saw this. Zhou Tai, on the other hand, smiled as he stared at Xiao Yan for a moment. After which, he turned his gaze and looked in the direction outside of the city. At this moment, a human figure was flying over at an extremely fast speed. Very quickly, he arrived in front of everyone. When he saw Zhou Tai, he immediately bowed respectfully. This person who had arrived had the appearance of a young man. His cultivation was only that of a 3-star Dodi. From the way he addressed Zhou Tai, everyone knew that this young man was actually Zhou Tai's disciple. This caused Zhongli and the others to feel curious. Zhou Tai's temper was not very good. He would be happy at one moment and then awkward at the next. It was difficult to understand him. There was actually someone who dared to be his disciple? Brat, aren't you looking forward to being able to see your benefactor again? Today, teacher will fulfill your wish. Zhou Tai ignored the strange expressions of the people around him as he spoke to the young man by himself. At the same time, he extended a finger and pointed at Xiao Yan, who was seated cross-legged on the ground a short distance away. The young man's gaze followed and looked over. Soon after, he saw the familiar face that he could not erase from deep within his memory. Back then, it was Zhou Tai who had helped him regain his dignity and allowed him to gain a deeper understanding of the way of alchemy. Even though Xiao Yan had only said one sentence to him back then, just this point alone had caused him to enjoy an endless amount of benefits. Back then, he had already treated Xiao Yan as his teacher. If he had not met Zhou Tai later on and been persuaded by the latter and inadvertently mentioned Xiao Yan, it was likely that he would not have become Zhou Tai's disciple. Although he now had a teacher, the young man still held a heart of respect for Xiao Yan in front of him. Even if he was not his teacher, he was still more respectful than his teacher. After a long while, Xiao Yan exited from his cultivation state. The instant he opened his eyes, he saw the somewhat unfamiliar face of the young man in front of him. After which, he turned around and saw the suspicious faces of Bai Hua and the rest. In addition, there was also Zhou Tai, who had a mocking expression on his face. This fellow clearly knew the reason behind this but had not told them. Bang! However, just as Xiao Yan's expression was stupefied, the young man in front of him actually knelt down in front of Xiao Yan in front of everyone present and did not hesitate to perform a great junior's greeting. When this scene appeared, not only was the rest of the people present stunned, even Xiao Yan himself was completely stunned. The sudden scene in front of him had really caught him off guard. He did not even know who this fellow was, but he actually knelt down in front of him. Even if he wanted to become Xiao Yan's disciple, he should at least announce his name. Junior Mu Ling thanks Senior for enlightening me back then. Chapter 1139. Mu Ling? Xiao Yan's mind did not have any impression of this name when he heard it. Instead, he felt that it was increasingly unfamiliar. He had really met too many people along the way. There were many people whom he could not remember clearly. Those who could leave a deep impression in his mind were those whom he had a strong relationship with. As for someone like this young man in front of him, he was unable to recall just when and where he had met such a person. The expression deep within Mu Ling's eyes dimmed slightly when he saw Xiao Yan reveal such an expression. Although he felt a little disappointed in his heart, his face did not reveal any surprise. After all, such a thing was merely a casual action by Xiao Yan back then. How could he have known that a casual sentence he had uttered back then would actually create a genius with such outstanding alchemist skills? However, just as Mu Ling was about to speak up for Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged in front of him, suddenly seemed to have recalled something. His eyes suddenly lit up and he said in surprise, "You are the kid that I met in Yanluo City back then?" When these words came out, Mu Ling's eyes, which had just dimmed, suddenly revealed a little ecstasy. He did not expect that after so many years, the person in front of him would actually remember such a small matter from back then. No matter what, this had already made Mu Ling more confident of his own value. At the same time, he could not help but respect Xiao Yan even more in his heart. Back then, he was merely an inconspicuous little alchemist. It was incomparably difficult for him to even refine an ordinary medicinal pill. However, after experiencing that incident, his understanding of the way of alchemy had greatly soared. This was not merely because of his own talent. More importantly, it was because of the pride that Xiao Yan, that incomparably strong figure, had given him. To be recognized by an expert, this was probably the dream of every young man. I did not expect that after so many years, Elder would actually still remember me. I am Mu Ling. It is all thanks to Elder's guidance that I am able to achieve what I have today. This junior will never forget Elder's kindness. Tears of excitement continuously flowed in Mu Ling's eyes. In the blink of an eye, his entire face had turned red. After so many years, the person in front of him had already become an even more powerful existence. In fact, he could faintly feel that even his current teacher, Zhou Tai, was far inferior to him. Even so, he was still able to remember a small matter from back then. This really caused him to be pleasantly surprised. Being able to see Xiao Yan again was already considered as fulfilling his wish. How could Mu Ling dare to have extravagant hopes that Xiao Yan would still remember him? However, while he was astonished, he could barely suppress the emotions in his heart. However, when he saw Mu Ling, who was kneeling in front of him, revealing such a shocking appearance, Xiao Yan's old face turned red as he rubbed his nose. To be honest, he did not have much of an impression of Mu Ling. The reason why he was able to recall that incident was because of the Luo Tian cauldron in his storage ring. The Luo Tian cauldron was obtained from Yanluo City. This naturally left a deep impression on Xiao Yan. Now that he thought about it, he also remembered the mysterious expert that he met back then. That fellow from the middle region was also the reason why Xiao Yan was curious about Lian Er's true identity. That little girl, who looked like an ordinary girl, seemed to have a secret that no one knew about. It was just that the current Lian Xiao Yan stood up. Mu Ling, who was kneeling respectfully in front of him, was also helped up by Xiao Yan. After which, the group of people chatted and laughed as they returned to the Lu clan's mansion. With Zhou Tai's presence, the atmosphere among the group involuntarily became lively. As they chatted and laughed, they seemed to have forgotten about the great battle that had occurred in the city. They did not even mention it. After which, Mu Ling also introduced himself to the group. He was a rank 3 alchemist and one of the core disciples of the Southern Region Alchemist Alliance. If he was successful in the future, he even had the chance to enter the Pill Tower headquarters in the Middle Region. This was an unparalleled honor for them. Even Zhou Tai's eyes were filled with excitement when he mentioned this matter. Mu Ling also had a longing expression. After the rest of the people heard this, their faces were filled with shock as they gathered their gazes on Mu Ling. They could not help but feel slightly shocked by the excellence of this young man in front of them. However, when they thought about how Mu Ling was able to reach such heights with just a little guidance from Xiao Yan, the shock in their hearts immediately shifted to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan did not pay attention to the crowd's gazes. When he heard the familiar title that came from Mu Ling's mouth, there was only some curiosity and excitement in his heart. With regards to that place, Xiao Yan did not have any longing. However, if there was a chance, he would not hesitate to compete with the alchemist experts of the Pill Tower. As for treating the Pill Tower as a place of honor and yearning like the others, this was something that Xiao Yan could not do. He'd experienced too much, and he didn't care about fame and glory a long time ago. Instead of thinking about it, it was better to place all his energy on cultivation. After all, so long as his strength was sufficient, then wouldn't fame and glory come knocking on his door obediently? As the saying goes, it is better to rely on oneself than to rely on others. This was the principle behind it. After a few exchanges of greetings, the rest of the people in the hall gradually left. Only Bai Hua and Zhou Tai stayed behind. Of course, the reason why they stayed behind was naturally because of Xiao Yan. This time, I have to thank Elder Zhou for being able to force Fu Yulong to retreat. If it was not for you, I'm afraid that this matter would have been worse than I expected. After everyone left, Xiao Yan stood up and respectfully cupped his hands towards Zhou Tai. With a sincere expression on his face, Bai Hua did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent when she saw this. She hurriedly bowed towards Zhou Tai. We are all family. There is no need to be so polite. In recent years, Fu Yulong's actions have been unusually eccentric. Many people in the southern region see him as a thorn in their side. However, due to this fellow's tyrannical strength, no one dares to stand up for him. The words that I said to that fellow today were actually the intentions of those old fellows in the Alchemist Alliance. Furthermore, if it was not for you, I'm afraid that I would not have been able to find such an outstanding disciple like Mu Ling. If there is anyone to thank, I should be the one thanking you. When these words were spoken, the three of them instantly looked at each other. Soon after, they burst into laughter. After a few exchanges of laughter, Zhou Tai finally found out that Xiao Yan had already joined the Alchemist Alliance in the western region. This meant that they belonged to the same faction. Their relationship with each other had unknowingly become even closer. After chatting for a while, Xiao Yan's gaze turned back and landed on Bai Hua. In the past few days, Xiao Yan had been busy with the reorganization of the Lu family. There were still some things that he had not asked Bai Hua clearly. Now that the trouble had been resolved, it was time to ask. After a series of general inquiries, Bai Hua described the overall changes in the Lu family to Xiao Yan over the past few years. Over the past few years, with Bai Hua's protection, the Lu family's overall strength had naturally increased by quite a bit. Even though they had encountered many troubles, the overall strength of the Lu family was much stronger than when Xiao Yan had first met them. This was both within Xiao Yan's expectations and beyond his expectations. In addition to the overall strength of the Lu family, Lu Feng's remnant soul in the golden plaque had completely dissipated a few years ago. Only a strand of spiritual energy that Xiao Yan had left behind was still helping the descendants of the Lu family grow. After learning that Lu Feng's remnant soul had dissipated, while Xiao Yan was shocked, he could not help but feel pity in his heart. At the same time, he felt even more admiration for that fellow. A remnant soul had actually forcefully supported the Lu family to its current state. It must be said that as the former head of the Lu family, Lu Feng was incomparably outstanding. As for Wuxia Xianxia, Bai Hua had also told Xiao Yan in full detail about how she had arrived at this place. Once he heard that the girl had actually relied on a sentence that he had unintentionally said to find this place, Xiao Yan's heart could not help but feel shocked at this girl's actions. It was fortunate that he did not have the intention to lie to her. If it was someone else who harbored evil intentions, it was likely that this girl would not even know why she had been sold by that person. Fortunately, since this little girl was here, he could at least account to Wuxia Xianxia in the future. Additionally, there was Lian Er. Compared to them, Lian Er's current state was not what Xiao Yan had imagined. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1140. Ever since Xiao Yan came to Qingyang City, he did not have the time to care too much due to the matters of the Lu family. Hence, he did not see Lian Er. Now that the matter was brought up, Xiao Yan knew that Lian Er's woeful poison body had completely erupted many years ago. It was only with Bai Hua's intervention that the poison in the girl's body was suppressed. However, Lian Er also fell into a deep slumber because of this. However, as time passed, even with Bai Hua's strength, she gradually felt that she was unable to suppress Lian Er's woeful poison body. Since the beginning of the year, when Lien Er's woeful poison body erupted, Bai Hua was able to use her cultivation to forcefully suppress it. However, in recent years, every time Lien Er's woeful poison body erupted, even with Bai Hua's cultivation, she was no longer able to completely control it. In fact, in order to control Lien Er's body, she did not hesitate to use her own essence blood as the price in order to suppress the woeful poison body. When Xiao Yan heard these words, even with his temperament, his heart could not help but sink a little. For Bai Hua to use her own essence blood as the price, the severity of this matter was obvious. Lien Er's current situation was not small. In addition, in order to not cause panic in the Lu family, only the clan leader, Lu Huabai, knew about this matter in the entire Lu family. Even the first elder, Lu Xincheng, did not know about it. As for Zhou Tai, when he heard the words woeful poison body, a shocked expression could not help but appear on his old face. There was even a trace of fear in his eyes. The woeful poison body was a terrifying body that was rarely seen on the continent. How could Zhou Tai not know about its reputation? However, what he did not expect was that Xiao Yan would actually leave such a person in the small Lu family. Furthermore, when he heard that Bai Hua could actually use her own essence blood to suppress the woeful poison body, a trace of surprise involuntarily flashed across the depths of his pair of sharp old eyes. When he first saw Bai Hua, he could sense a familiar scent from the latter. However, he was unable to identify the latter. Now that he heard Bai Hua speak, the curiosity in his heart grew even stronger. Xiao Yan was not surprised that the woeful poison body had completely erupted. However, the key point was that its strength was actually this frightening. This caused Xiao Yan to feel surprised. Such a situation had not occurred even with the little fairy doctor back then. From this, one could tell that the constitution that Lien Er possessed was likely much more frightening than the little fairy doctor. A while later, under Bai Hua's lead, Xiao Yan and the other two arrived at a secret underground tunnel in the Lu family. In the depths of the tunnel was the secret room where Lien was placed. The secret room was set up 1,000 feet below the Lu clan's residence. The reason for this was because the poison was so strong that it could already infect the space hundreds of feet away from Lien Er. Even though it was deep underground, the power was still enough to cause one's heart to palpitate. Before the three of them arrived at the secret room, Xiao Yan and Zhou Tai, who were alchemists, had already sensed the powerful poison. What a frightening poison! Even the ground has been infected. The three of them gradually walked down the tunnel that was filled with soft light. When Zhou Tai sensed the powerful poison from Lien Er's body, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. This was the first time in his life that he had seen a poison that could even infect the ground. When he heard this, Xiao Yan's expression was a little grave as he nodded his head. The expression in his eyes appeared a little stern. Bai Hua sighed helplessly and frowned slightly as she continued to walk forward. After all, she had watched that girl gradually grow up. Bai Hua's heart could not bear to see her become like this. However, it was fortunate that Xiao Yan had returned. She believed that all the troubles would be easily resolved. Bai Hua's heart was filled with worry. Very quickly, the three of them saw Lien Er. Many years had passed, and the little guy from back then had already grown into a beautiful young lady. Her beautiful cheeks matched with her tender body that was as soft as water. She could definitely be called a stunning beauty. It was a pity that although the beauty was beautiful, she could only lie on this special ice bed. Her soul was imprisoned by the frightening poison. In the small secret room, a dark purple poison fog slowly spread. An ordinary person's naked eye could not see anything clearly in this place. The luminous pearls that were originally embedded in the wall had also become pitch black because of the poison fog. Even the entire secret room was filled with a rotting smell. Standing in front of the ice bed, Xiao Yan and the other two were surrounded by a light blue flame. When the poison fog around them came into contact with the heavenly flame, it would emit a slight chi-chi sound before disappearing. However, immediately after, more poison fog would surge over. Looking at the pretty girl in front of him, Xiao Yan's eyes were filled with reluctance. At the same time, he could not help but think of the little fairy doctor from back then. Now that he thought about it, the two of them were so similar. They were both weak girls, but they had to endure such inhuman pain. Even though Lien, who had fainted, looked calm, everyone knew that her soul was currently experiencing another torment that ordinary people could not imagine. In this world, there was no physique that could truly experience prosperity. If one could not break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly, one would not be able to escape the fate of a premature death. This little girl is actually the one who possesses such a frightening physique. How pitiful. Zhou Tai was also looking at Lien, at the moment. He could not help but feel pity for Lien, She was at the prime of her life, yet she had encountered such a thing. It was like a flower that had just bloomed but was mercilessly plucked just as it was about to bloom. Everything was about to become a thing of the past before it could happen. Puff! Just as the words from Zhou Tai's mouth sounded, a pale blue-colored flame immediately shot out from Xiao Yan's sharp eyes. It turned into two flame light beams that scattered the poison fog in front of him. At the same time, Xiao Yan extended two fingers and received it. The light blue flames covered Xiao Yan's fingers. Flames danced at the tips of his fingers. Then, with a flick of his fingers, a few tiny flames immediately shot out. They were like 4 lanterns that floated at the 4 corners of the ice bed under Lien, They released a faint light and dispersed the poisonous fog. Through the reflection of the light, Xiao Yan and the others could clearly see that the ice bed under Lien had already turned pitch black from the corrosion of the poison. A portion of it had even turned into black water and flowed down the ice bed. The terror of the poison was vividly displayed at this moment. Bai Hua had specially gone out to search for this ice bed in the depths of the mountains. Although it was not a precious treasure, the fact that she had chosen it to suppress the poison in Lien-er's body was enough to prove that this ice bed was extraordinary. However, it had now been corroded to such a state. This was truly unimaginable. However, Xiao Yan did not have time to care about this at this moment. After dispersing the poisonous fog around the ice bed, Xiao Yan extended his hand and grabbed Lien-er's white and tender wrist. Light blue flames immediately covered his palm. Traces of flames entered Lien-er's body from his palm under Xiao Yan's control. After a simple examination, Xiao Yan's face became gloomy. Chapter 1141. Under Xiao Yan's probing, the poison in Lien-er's body had already spread throughout her entire body. The powerful poison was almost solid, and even his heavenly flame was unable to easily disperse it. Lien-er's condition was much worse than he had imagined. How can this be? Not only did the poison invade the Qi vortex, it even borrowed the girl's Do Qi to become stronger. I can't believe such a thing happened. Ch. The poison in Lien-er's body suddenly agglomerated just as Xiao Yan quietly sensed that something was wrong in his heart. It forcefully swallowed the heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had inserted into Lien-er's body. It even moved along their palms and invaded Xiao Yan's body, causing Xiao Yan to immediately release his hand that was holding Lien-er's hand. At the same time, his other hand hurriedly grabbed the wrist of his left hand. A ferocious heavenly flame immediately surged and incinerated the poison that had invaded his palm. God damn it! How can this be? Xiao Yan never imagined that the poison would take the initiative to attack his heavenly flame. Moreover, it was so powerful that even he found it difficult to deal with it. The expressions of Bai Hua and Zhou Tai by the side involuntarily changed when they saw Xiao Yan suddenly being forced back. The two of them hurriedly shifted their gazes to Xiao Yan as the Genesis Qi in their bodies instantly rose as a precaution. However, the seemingly absent-minded Xiao Yan had placed all his attention on Lien-er. To be more precise, he was focused on the terrifying poison in her body. He had no time to pay attention to the two people whose expressions had abruptly changed. Plop. After being quiet for a moment, Xiao Yan once again attacked. A puff sound was heard as a pale blue flame suddenly rose from his right palm. The fierce high temperature instantly incinerated the poison fog that was a little closer. Even the temperature within the dark room had been raised significantly at this moment. Zhou Tai's eyes revealed a look of surprise as he gazed at the rising flame in Xiao Yan's palm. He had not paid much attention to it before, but now that the flame was bursting with power, he finally noticed that Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was very different from the one he had seen before. Whether it was in terms of aura, power, or the domineering degree of the flame, it was no longer the same as the one he had seen before. Even its color had changed greatly, as if the entire heavenly flame had undergone a metamorphosis. What has this kid been through all these years? Xiao Yan quietly said in his heart. Soon after, he controlled the pale blue-colored flame in his palm. His palm faced downward as it slowly approached the smooth forehead of Lian Er, who was lying on the ice bed. Bzz. The moment Xiao Yan's palm touched Lian Er's forehead, the latter's delicate body uncontrollably trembled. At the same time, a circle of purple-black poison qi violently spread out in all directions with Lian Er's body at the center. Bzz bzz bzz. Soon after, however, the four flames that were suspended at the four corners of the ice bed suddenly emitted a dazzling glow when the poison gas swept over. Blazing high temperatures instantly intertwined from the four corners. The pale blue flames transformed into an enormous fire net that forcefully incinerated the poison gas that was spreading outwards until nothing was left. What a domineering woeful poison body. If not for Xiao Yan's heavenly flame having a natural restraining effect, it would not have been so easy to suppress it. Zhou Tai's expression could not help but change slightly when he sensed the strength of the poison qi. At the same time, his gaze once again swept across the ice bed that was shrouded in flames. His gaze paused on Lian Er's delicate body. He could not help but ask Bai Hua in confusion. What is he trying to do? The flame did not look like a formation and did not have any suppressive effect. At most, it could only block the poison qi released from Lian Er's body. But what did this mean? Detoxification. Bai Hua narrowed her eyes and slowly swept her gaze across Lian, who was lying on the ice bed in front of her. A look of anticipation surged in her eyes. She believed that with Xiao Yan's help, Lian would definitely be able to wake up. When Zhou Tai heard Bai Hua's words, an expression of disbelief immediately appeared on his old face. The woeful poison body was an innate constitution and there was no cure for it. How could a heavenly flame be used to detoxify it? However, although Zhou Tai was unwilling to admit it, his heart gradually calmed down when he saw the solemn expression on Xiao Yan's face. He could understand that Xiao Yan would never do anything that he was not confident in. Furthermore, hadn't Xiao Yan always been breaking his understanding of this world? Perhaps it was time for the old ideas in his heart to change. Bzz bzz bzz. Lian Er's delicate body was still trembling violently uncontrollably. Waves of extremely terrifying poison qi surged out of her body, especially on her delicate and pretty face. The dense poison qi had turned her entire face into a dense black color. Lian Er's delicate lips, which had already turned purple-black in color, opened uncontrollably. Her throat emitted a strange hoarse cry. The poison wildly agglomerated together, appearing just like a black-colored poisonous snake that pounced toward Xiao Yan's hand, which was imprinted on Lian Er's forehead. This thing actually has its own consciousness. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's pupils suddenly shrank. Then, he clenched his teeth and the light blue flame suddenly became even more ferocious. As it rapidly spread, it seemed to have turned into a flaming lion and fiercely tore at the poison qi. Extinguish. Soon, the flames completely enveloped Lian Er's entire body. The heavenly fire rose, releasing a high temperature that dispelled the surrounding poisonous fog. The light of the fire almost filled the entire dark room. In a moment, the poisonous fog that originally filled the dark room dissipated, and the strange smell in the air also gradually disappeared. Invisibly, there seemed to be an additional breath of life. Bang! After a short exchange, Xiao Yan squeezed the black-colored poisonous snake until it exploded. The fierce flame swiftly charged forward like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, completely refining this cluster of poison. Even though this was the case, the emotions in Xiao Yan's heart did not relax. This poison force already possessed its own consciousness. This was the first time that he had seen such a thing. If he did not treat it carefully, it was likely that it would cause quite a great harm to Lian Er. This was something that he did not wish to see. When Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was once again injected into Lian Er's body, the previous scene happened again. The poison seemed to have become even more ferocious in Lian Er's body. Facing Xiao Yan's heavenly flame, it was not afraid at all. Under the repeated attacks, even Xiao Yan felt uncomfortable. After a long while, the heavenly flame was still unable to expel the poison in Lian Er's body. This inevitably caused Xiao Yan to frown. If he forcefully expelled it, Xiao Yan was worried that it would harm Lian Er's body. However, if he let it go, he would definitely not be able to expel the poison. This caused Xiao Yan to be in a dilemma. Chapter 1142. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Yan still chose to act decisively. Based on the current situation, they had no other choice. The poison had already permeated Lian Er's entire body. If they did not expel it now, it would probably become more and more difficult in the future. If they wanted to expel it now, the chances of success would be even lower. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan stretched out his hands. Blazing flames curled around his palms as he held Lian Er's 4 limbs in succession. He injected a large amount of strange fire into her wrists and ankles, and finally the top of her head. He began to expel the thick poison from Lian Er's body from these 5 places. With his enormous soul power, Xiao Yan controlled the strange fire in 5 different places and began to refine the poison in Lian Er's body. Due to the different distribution of the poison force in each area, Xiao Yan needed to have a higher requirement when it came to controlling the strength of the heavenly flame. If he was the slightest bit careless, it was possible for him to harm Lian Er's body. Fortunately, with Xiao Yan's current strength, he could be considered an extremely powerful existence regardless of whether it was his spiritual strength or his flame-controlling skills. Controlling a heavenly flame to refine the poison might be an impossible task for others, but it was not much of a challenge for him. With a thought, the surging soul power between his eyebrows immediately surged out and split into 5 parts to control the strange fire in Lian Er's body. Next, it was a battle between the strange fire and the woeful poison body. The fierce flame emitted a high temperature as it began to wildly refine the 4 limbs that were filled with poison. It was even possible to see the spots of pale blue glow under Lian Er's skin. That was the heavenly flame that was currently refining the poison. Wherever a pale blue glow rose from the surface of Lian Er's body, it meant that the poison under her flesh had been completely dispersed by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Chi, under the refinement of the heavenly flame, the poison that filled Lian Er's entire palm quickly melted away like ice in the face of fire. First, the poison that filled her fingertips quickly faded away, followed by her 5 fingers. Finally, it was her entire palm, her entire arm, and even her entire body. Of course, the process of expelling the poison was not as easy as Xiao Yan had imagined. The strength of the poison was far from what Xiao Yan had seen in the past. Although the heavenly flame was strong, the retaliation strength of the poison could not be underestimated. This time around, it took a total of 6 hours just to expel the poison that filled Lian Er's hands. The Genesis Qi within Xiao Yan's body was greatly exhausted. Even a few drops of sweat involuntarily appeared on Xiao Yan's face. Even so, a portion of the poison hidden deep within Lian Er's bones still remained. The poison had been in Lian Er's body for many years, and it was already very good that it could be expelled to this extent in a few hours. But it would take more time to completely eradicate the poison. As for now, the most important thing was to expel the poison that had spread throughout Lian Er's body. Time passed little by little. In the end, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged in front of the ice bed, while Bai Hua and Zhou Tai chose to leave the dark room after some hesitation. If they stayed, they would only interfere with Xiao Yan's expelling process. Only by leaving would he be able to use his full strength. There was no need to worry about the former's safety. After the two of them left, Xiao Yan remained alone in the dark room. This stay lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, the entire process of expelling the poison was finally completed. Only then did Xiao Yan walk out of the dark room. However, his expression was not as comfortable as everyone had imagined when he was exposed under the sunlight. In the discussion hall of the Lu clan's residence, there was no one else besides the Lu clan's higher-ups. Xiao Yan sat on a chair with a tired face, and his expression was a little gloomy, as if he was somewhat disappointed. Bai Hua and Zhou Tai sat on the chairs on his left and right, while Clan Master Lu Huabai and First Elder Lu Xincheng sat opposite him. At this point, Bai Hua no longer hid anything from Lu Xincheng. Instead, she told him the whole story. When Lu Xincheng found out about it, although he was shocked by Lian's situation, he did not say much. He also knew that Bai Hua did not say anything because she was worried that the other members of the Lu clan would gossip. After all, the more people who knew about it, the more unnecessary trouble it would cause. Lu Xincheng had lived for many years, and he understood this principle. How is it? Has Lian's poison been cured? Beside Xiao Yan, Bai Hua saw the tiredness on Xiao Yan's face. Although she understood that Xiao Yan was tired, she still could not help but ask. Although the surrounding people were silent, they also stared at Xiao Yan with sighs. After all, Lian's matter was an extremely troublesome matter in the Lu clan. However, in the face of Bai Hua's somewhat impatient question, Xiao Yan was silent for a while, and then helplessly shook his head, sighed, and slowly said, "This matter is much more complicated than it was before. This matter is much more troublesome than I thought. With my current methods, I still can't completely remove the poison in Lian's body, even with the strange flame." "What, even the heavenly flame, can't do anything?" Hearing this, the expressions on the faces of the people present immediately changed. Helplessness was mixed with unwillingness. They had painstakingly protected this girl for so many years. Could it be that this was the result they got in return? With regards to this, Xiao Yan's heart was also extremely helpless. He did not expect that the poison was so strong that it had already invaded Lian's spiritual origin. It was using Lian's spiritual origin to run amok in her body. It was also because of this that the thing seemed to have its own consciousness in Xiao Yan's probing. After 3 days of refining and expelling, although most of the poison had been expelled, there was still a portion of it that was entrenched in Lian's cyclone and spiritual origin. Xiao Yan was unable to touch it with his current methods. Even with Xiao Yan's spiritual energy, he was unable to pull it out. If he forcefully tried, Lian's spiritual origin would be destroyed before he could expel the poison. Then what should we do? Don't tell me that we have to leave Lian's in that dark room forever. That girl has already suffered enough. Lu Huabai could not bear to say this. Although Lian was not related to him by blood, he had personally watched her grow up. It was really impossible for him to ignore her. Let's wait a little longer. I will temporarily use the heavenly flame to seal her cyclone. The poison will not spread for a short period of time. In addition, I will find someone. Perhaps she has a way to save Lian's. With a long sigh, Xiao Yan once again spoke of hope just as the hope in their hearts was about to be extinguished. Chapter 1143. Just as Xiao Yan was filled with anticipation, Luo Jin and the others finally arrived outside Azure Sun City. Other than Luo Jin and Leng Bingshuang, there was also the heaven-reaching great ape and the narwhal snake. The others remained in the Shilin mountain range in case of any accidents. The sudden appearance of 3 returnance experts and a 9-star Do-Di in the sky above Azure Sun City naturally attracted the attention of many people in the city. As the strongest organization in Azure Sun City, the Liu family naturally became extremely cautious the moment they appeared. However, when Xiao Yan sensed the familiar presences, a smile finally appeared on his pale face. Bai Hua's nervousness vanished when she saw this. The people in the hall slowly stood up. With Xiao Yan in the lead, they slowly walked out of the hall. Raising his head to look at the people in the sky, Xiao Yan gently smiled and said, "Come down. If you continue to stay in the sky like this, the people in the city will probably all run away." The Azure Sun City had already been through several battles and could no longer endure such an impact. Once experts descended, the only thing the people in the city could think of was to take everything they had and leave as quickly as possible. The sudden appearance of Leng Bingshuang and the others had already frightened many people in the city. Although the few people in the sky were somewhat at a loss when they heard Xiao Yan's words, they still swiftly descended when they saw the anxious faces of everyone in the city. They landed in the Liu clan's mansion. Only when everyone in the city sensed that there was no big battle between both parties did their anxious feelings gradually relax. The moment the few of them met, Leng Bingshuang immediately sensed the condition of Xiao Yan's body. She ignored the latter's objection and stepped forward to investigate. Only after she confirmed that Xiao Yan was fine did she relax. However, the expressions of the people in the surroundings became rather unnatural when they saw the rather ambiguous scene between the two of them. In particular, Zhou Tai's eyes immediately became filled with shock when he glanced past the four of them. He discovered that aside from a young black-robed person, the others were all origin transformation experts. In particular, the enchanting woman who was checking on Xiao Yan's condition was extremely powerful. She had already reached the peak of late origin transformation. She was probably only a step away from returnance. As for Luo Jin, Zhou Tai had known him for a long time, so there was no need to mention this. Zhou Tai was not surprised by his cultivation. Other than that, there was the bald man. Putting aside his tyrannical cultivation, he could actually feel a faint pressure from the latter's body. That kind of pressure was similar to his innate domineering aura. However, it was even more tyrannical and ferocious. Even he could not help but feel fear in his heart. Although the 9-star Do Di Brat's cultivation seemed ordinary, he was definitely not a simple person since he could be with these people. However, the thing that caused Zhou Tai to feel the most surprised was that this group of people were all Xiao Yan's friends. The relationship between this woman in front of him and Xiao Yan went without saying. Why are all the people around this brat only at this level of cultivation? At this moment, even with Zhou Tai's mental fortitude, the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. There was no need to describe the feelings of the surrounding people from the Liu clan. Since they were acquaintances, there was naturally no need to be overly courteous. However, before Xiao Yan could ask about the fairy doctor, Leng Bingshuang had already passed a jade slip to Xiao Yan. At the same time, Leng Bingshuang informed Xiao Yan that the fairy doctor had left alone after coming to the southern region with them. What? How could you let her leave alone? The factions in the southern region are complicated. With her current cultivation, if she were to meet with any mishap, it is because of this that she chose to leave. She did not want to be a burden to you. Without waiting for Xiao Yan's questioning voice to completely fall, Leng Bingshuang interrupted him. The expression on Xiao Yan's face was also immediately startled. No wonder the fairy doctor had been much less talkative recently. Even the expression in her eyes when she looked at him was a little uncomfortable. So this was the reason. At this moment, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly froze. Everyone held their breaths and focused their minds. They did not dare to act recklessly, afraid that any external factors would lead to unpredictable consequences. Then why didn't you stop her? After being silent for a moment, Xiao Yan opened his mouth and weakly asked. If a person really wants to leave, you will definitely not be able to stop her. After pausing for a moment, Leng Bingshuang stared at Xiao Yan. Every word that came out of her mouth was like a nail that was nailed into his chest, causing his breathing to become increasingly hurried. Where did she go? I don't know. Which direction? Both of them lowered their heads, one asking and one answering. However, Leng Bingshuang fell into silence. She did not know whether she should say it or not. Would it be wrong or right to say it? Would it harm the fairy doctor or save the fairy doctor? Then what about herself? Leng Bingshuang did not know. Which direction did she go? Xiao Yan finally raised his head and stared at Xiao Yan. There was a suppressed emotion in the depths of his eyes that was rioting. When Leng Bingshuang met his gaze, she could not help but recall the way Xiao Yan looked at her. It seemed to be the same. This gaze made it impossible for her to refute. South. Her red lips parted slightly as Leng Bingshuang spat out a word with her beautiful eyes. However, in the next moment, the ground in the hall instantly exploded and the roof was instantly destroyed by a terrifying force. Xiao Yan's body shot out into the sky like an arrow and rushed towards the direction where Luo Jin and the rest came from. Xiao Yan, now that you have become a true expert and there are people like Leng Bingshuang who are willing to give their hearts to you, my existence has already become a burden to you. If I continue to stay here, I'm afraid that I will only cause you more trouble. So, goodbye. I want to go and train alone. If possible, I hope that the next time we meet, I can still stand in front of you like before. Hearing the familiar voice of the fairy doctor in his mind, Xiao Yan's hands tightly clenched into a ball. His body shook violently and his charging figure became much faster. Fairy doctor, wait for me. I will definitely bring you back. At the same time, in a certain mountain forest in the southern region, the fairy doctor expressionlessly walked towards the south. She had heard that the southern region had a teleportation formation that could lead to the central region. Through there, she could reach the central region. She believed that only in the central region would she be able to increase her cultivation in the shortest amount of time. This was the only way for her to become stronger and help Xiao Yan. However, at the same time that the little fairy doctor arrived at the mountain forest, another person coincidentally discovered her tracks. Chapter 1144. At this moment, the little fairy doctor, who was wearing a long white dress, was slowly walking forward with an absent-minded expression in a boundless mountain forest in the southern region. The faint aura that was being emitted from her body caused the magic beasts in the forest to not dare to easily approach her. Hence, her journey was considered peaceful. The little fairy doctor's heart was reluctant to leave Xiao Yan and head to the middle region alone. However, no matter how reluctant she was, she had to choose to leave in order to not bring trouble to Xiao Yan and to not become a burden to him. The enemies that Xiao Yan was currently facing were becoming increasingly powerful. Her Do-Di cultivation alone was no longer sufficient to provide him with any substantial help. The little fairy doctor needed to find an even greater strength in order to truly help Xiao Yan. As she thought in this way, the little fairy doctor's mind involuntarily recalled the days when she was with Xiao Yan in the Black Corner region and the Central Plains. At that time, the opponents that they faced were similarly incomparably powerful. However, at the very least, she was able to be of help to Xiao Yan. Now, however, all of this was too far away from her. Perhaps, in the near future, she would once again be able to stand in front of Xiao Yan with the attitude of a strong person and shock the crowd on his behalf. However, while the little fairy doctor was daydreaming in her heart, a middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe was standing on top of a tree a few thousand feet away from her in the mountain forest. His eyes peered through the countless number of gaps and stared at the listless little fairy doctor. The corner of his thin mouth was lifted into a cold smile. He did not expect that he would actually meet her here after leaving the western region. He also did not expect that the little fairy doctor would actually appear here. If Xiao Yan and Luo Jin were present at this moment, they, who were quite familiar with the latter's appearance, would definitely be able to recognize that this middle-aged man was Zhang Yi, who had destroyed the teleportation formation in Lingchui City. His true identity was a member of the Ghost Hall. The little fairy doctor. I remember that she is called by this name. She is one of Xiao Yan's people. A 3-star Do-Di. No wonder she would appear here. Her cultivation has actually broken through. The corners of Zhang Yi's eyes could not help but curl up. Being able to meet the little fairy doctor here was simply a gift from the heavens. If he was able to capture the little fairy doctor, the higher-ups would definitely reward him quite a lot. At that time, his current 9-star Do-D cultivation would be able to advance another step. On the other side, Xiao Yan, who was traveling at full speed, swallowed a lot of elixirs and replenished the Genesis Qi he had consumed. He had already activated the Sky Extinction Step and Wing Elephant Art to their limits, and even used the Great Tao of the Void. In just half an hour, he had arrived near the ancient wilderness city from Qingyang City. Relying on his vast soul energy, Xiao Yan could vaguely sense the remnant aura that the fairy doctor had left behind in this place. Following this trace of aura, Xiao Yan immediately determined the direction in which the fairy doctor had left. While the heavenly flame in the vortex frantically refined the pills, streams of model Genesis Qi continued to circulate through the meridians throughout his body. His speed increased to the maximum, and his figure disappeared like a bolt of lightning, disappearing 1,000 miles away in the blink of an eye. Swish, the fairy doctor, who was slowly walking forward, suddenly stopped in her tracks. She had clearly heard a strange sound coming from the surrounding leaves, as if something was approaching her. While uneasiness rose in her heart, the little fairy doctor quietly circulated the Do-Qi in her body. Her lily-white hands gently waved under the cover of her sleeves, and the air around her began to circulate in an imperceptible manner. A faint fragrance rapidly spread around the little fairy doctor. TSK TSK TSK. Little fairy doctor, shouldn't you currently be in the western region? It is unexpected that you have actually come here alone. From the looks of it, Xiao Yan does not appear to be by your side. Did you leave alone? Suddenly, a strange laughter was emitted from the forest beside them. Even the air vibrated slightly. The sharp and unpleasant voice caused one to feel uncontrollably scared. The expression on the fairy doctor's beautiful face instantly changed when she heard this voice. The Do-Qi in her body instantly surged out of her body and shrouded her body. At the same time that she raised her hands, her beautiful eyes swiftly scanned the surrounding environment, remaining alert at all times. Swish swish swish, suddenly, a human figure flickered in front of the little fairy doctor like a ghost. In the end, it stopped around 20 feet away from the little fairy doctor. The little fairy doctor did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent when she saw the face opposite her that could be considered upright. She did not need to think too much to be certain of the other party's identity. You're from the Ghost Hall. TSK TSK TSK, we are all old friends. Why is there a need to be so cautious? I really did not expect that I would actually meet Xiao Yan's woman in this deep forest. If I were to pass the news of you being in our hands to Xiao Yan, I wonder if he would go crazy because of it. TSK 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 TSK, Zhang Yi parted his mouth and smiled. That smile appeared somewhat ferocious and terrifying. Hearing this, the little fairy doctor lowered her eyelids. An extremely cold expression surfaced in her beautiful eyes. However, there was an even greater seriousness in her heart. This fellow was able to approach her without her noticing. This already indicated that the other party's cultivation was far above hers. If she did not take the opportunity to escape and was captured by him, it would only cause endless trouble for Xiao Yan. It won't be so easy to capture me. The little fairy doctor's eyes swiftly swept over the surrounding environment. After choosing a direction, her mouth immediately emitted a low cry. Her delicate jade-like fingers swiftly formed a seal. At the same time, the elegant fragrance that had spread around her body earlier suddenly began to churn in the next instant. It transformed into a large purple-colored poison fog. In the blink of an eye, it covered nearly 1,000 feet of the mountain forest. In an instant, the forest that was covered by the poison fog had completely transformed into a barren swamp. Wave after wave of dense poison gas floated in the air. Those below the cultivation level of a Do-D were unable to step into this place. The little fairy doctor swiftly flew out of the poison fog while this mountain forest was covered by the poison fog. As for Zhang Yi, although he was covered by the poison fog, it could temporarily block his sight. However, the little fairy doctor clearly understood that this was only for a short period of time. She needed to use this short period of time to swiftly escape from this place. Just as the little fairy doctor had predicted, Zhang Yi, who was unaware of the little fairy doctor's attack, did not have any time to react before he was covered by the poison fog. Regardless of whether it was his sight or spiritual perception, they were all blocked for a short period of time. He was unable to find the little fairy doctor's exact location. Bang! However, the little fairy doctor still missed a trick. After all, the other party was a 9-star Do-D. Relying on his powerful cultivation, Zhang Yi borrowed the energy storm that was created when his Do-Chi erupted and completely swept away the poison fog in the shortest amount of time. After which, his gaze swiftly turned and saw the little fairy doctor who had not run far. Trying to run? In your dreams. A low cry sounded. The Do-Chi within Zhang Yi's body swiftly surged. His feet immediately stepped on empty air. The space under his feet shattered as Zhang Yi's body caught up with the little fairy doctor, who was swiftly fleeing. At this moment, the little fairy doctor's heart involuntarily sank after discovering that her poison fog did not have any effect. The Do-Chi within her body circulated wildly without caring about anything as she attempted to make a final struggle. However, the result was her neck being grabbed by Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi exerted a little force with his wrist and the Do-Chi within the little fairy doctor's body immediately came to a stop. Her entire body was lifted by Zhang Yi. "Humph, do you think that you can escape from my palm with just your strength? You should obediently follow me back to receive your reward." Zhang Yi coldly laughed. The force on his wrist gradually increased. However, in the next instant, bang! A black figure was as fast as a shooting star. In the blink of an eye, it cut through the sky. The hand that was still grabbing the little fairy doctor's wrist a moment ago immediately released it. Her entire body suddenly disappeared in midair. The little fairy doctor's body was gently hugged by a pair of hands the moment she landed. When she raised her eyes, the person that the little fairy doctor saw was undoubtedly Xiao Yan. Chapter 1145. Xiao Yan. The fairy doctor could not help but exclaim. The little fairy doctor involuntarily let out a soft cry of surprise. The moment Zhang Yi grabbed her neck, she was already prepared to die. However, she did not expect Xiao Yan to rush over at this critical moment. Moreover, he had once again saved her. "You are so silly. Who told you that you are a burden to me? You have never been a burden to me. No matter what you become, you are my responsibility." Xiao Yan lowered his head and looked at the fairy doctor, who was close to him. His tired face could not help but reveal a touch of tenderness. There was a hint of reproach in his gentle eyes, as if he was blaming her for leaving him like this. When the fairy doctor heard Xiao Yan's words, a bright red color immediately surfaced on her pale face. This was especially so when Xiao Yan's breath landed on her delicate face. It was as though she had been grilled by fire, causing her entire face to appear incomparably red. Subsequently, Xiao Yan gently let go of the fairy doctor as the beauty in his arms struggled slightly. Then, he looked down at the forest below and saw Zhang Yi, who had been smashed deep into the ground by the dark heavy buster sword. After receiving Xiao Yan's blow, even with Zhang Yi's cultivation, Xiao Yan believed that even if Zhang Yi did not die, he would at least have a few broken ribs. Cough, cough, cough. After a few violent coughs, Zhang Yi, who was in the deep pit, endured the intense pain in his body and climbed up. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at the huge black ruler that was inserted diagonally into the ground beside him. His emotions immediately became tense. How is this possible? I have been following her for so long. I clearly made sure that no one was following her before I made my move. Why did this guy come the moment I made my move? Zhang Yi's old face involuntarily twitched. How could he have imagined that the period of time when he did not act just in case had coincidentally given Xiao Yan enough time to catch up? Could it be that this guy has been following the fairy doctor all this time with the purpose of luring me into a trap? With that thought in mind, Zhang Yi became even more terrified. If that was the case, he would be the one in danger. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi did not dare to stay any longer. He endured the pain in his body and ran away. Boom! However, in the next moment, Xiao Yan's body descended from the sky like a ghost and landed heavily. Both of his feet violently stomped on the ground in front of Zhang Yi. The terrifying force caused the ground around the both of them to sink. Zhang Yi felt as though his heart was trembling violently at this moment. His face instantly turned green and white. Xiao Yan casually waved his hand, and the dark heavy buster sword, which was inserted into the ground not far away, quickly flew into his hand. He gently swung the buster sword, and the tip of the buster sword slanted to the ground. The wind pressure turned into a whirlwind that surrounded the buster sword, raising dust and fog all over the ground. Xiao Yan did not speak, nor did he make a move, but Zhang Yi's back was drenched in cold sweat. Zhang Yi, although Xiao Yan already knew Zhang Yi's identity, he still spoke faintly. Zhang Yi could not help but feel a little happy when he heard this. He quickly laughed dryly and said, Hee, so it's brother Xiao Yan. I didn't expect that after we parted in Green Jade City, boom. However, before Zhang Yi could finish his words, an indescribably powerful force instantly penetrated his lungs. The wide buster sword ruthlessly bombarded his chest, and the robes on his chest and back were instantly shattered. His entire chest caved in an instant, and Zhang Yi's pupils instantly shrank to the size of a needle tip. You should never have had any ideas about her. Boom! Xiao Yan's arm shook gently the moment the soft words sounded from his mouth. An extremely powerful force immediately spat out from the huge ruler and sent Zhang Yi's body flying into the sky. Swoosh! Although there was still fatigue on his face, Xiao Yan's attack was extremely fierce. It was as overbearing as a long spear, constantly piercing through the sky. Zhang Yi's body was like a sandbag, being mercilessly bombarded by Xiao Yan in the most overbearing way. In the end, the buster sword heavily smashed Zhang Yi's body from top to bottom. With a bang, Zhang Yi's body once again smashed into the forest below, like a pile of mud, lying motionless on the ground. Immediately, Xiao Yan returned to the little fairy doctor's side. After consuming a couple of medicinal pills, he grabbed the latter's wrist with one hand and flew in the direction of Qingyang City. Along the way, the words that Xiao Yan had said to her earlier floated in the little fairy doctor's mind. You have never been a burden to me. No matter what you become, you are my responsibility. On the way back to the Green Sun City, the two of them took nearly 6 hours. By the time they reached the Green Sun City, it was already late at night. In the entire Lu family, only Leng Bingshuang, Bai Hua, and the others were waiting. When they saw that the two of them had returned safely, the worries in their hearts were put to rest. Only Leng Bingshuang could not help but feel wronged when she saw Xiao Yan holding the fairy doctor's wrist. However, when she saw Xiao Yan's tired face, she did not say anything. This night, the entire Lu clan could be considered quiet. Only Leng Bingshuang and the little fairy doctor, who were in different rooms, had somewhat complicated emotions. As for Xiao Yan, after being tired for a few days and nights, in addition to today's crazy journey, his mental strength could no longer be exhausted. The moment he lay on the bed, he could not help but fall into a deep sleep. There was no need to even mention thinking about anything else. The next day, after everyone had rested for the night and woke up, Xiao Yan hurriedly led the fairy doctor into the secret room once again. He believed that the fairy doctor, who also possessed the woeful poison body, would definitely be able to think of a way to save Lien Er. After the fairy doctor heard about Lien Er's matter, she naturally understood that this was no small matter. She immediately headed to the secret room with Xiao Yan. Behind them, Leng Bingshuang and the rest also followed curiously, wanting to find out what was going on. Of course, they were more curious about the legendary woeful poison body that had completely erupted. This was especially so for Leng Bingshuang. She herself possessed an extreme Yin body. Until now, she had yet to understand just how frightening this constitution was. Now that she was able to personally witness the complete eruption of the woeful poison body, she naturally felt a little impatient in her heart. However, after the fairy doctor roughly checked the condition of Lien Er's body, the expression on her face was not what Xiao Yan had initially imagined. Even with the fairy doctor's understanding of poison, she could not help but feel troubled in her heart when faced with Lien Er's current condition. However, the fairy doctor suddenly raised her own opinion while everyone was feeling confused and helpless in their hearts. Chapter 1146. Both of them possessed the woeful poison body. The little fairy doctor should have the means to save Lien Er when faced with such a situation. However, the biggest problem they were currently facing was that Lien Er's spiritual origin had already been invaded by the poison. In other words, there were two completely different consciousnesses in Lien Er's current body. If he continued to use ordinary methods to deal with this matter, the chances of Lien Er being harmed would greatly increase. If he wanted to help Lien suppress the woeful poison body, the first thing he needed to do now was to cleanse Lien Er's infected soul origin. Cleansing one's spiritual origin was something that could be easily done with the help of the heavenly flame. However, it was not so easy to do so at the moment. The spiritual origin was the foundation of a person. If Lien Er was not willing, others would not be able to safely expel the poison that had invaded her. However, Lien Er was currently unconscious. In her unconscious state, she was unable to make any decision. Lien Er's spiritual origin had already completely fallen under the control of the poison. If Xiao Yan were to forcefully refine it, he would only waste the pure spiritual origin energy. This would still harm Lien Er. There had to be a way to get rid of the poison without harming any of the pure soul origin. Core body transforming milk. Not long after the little fairy doctor spoke until this point, the eyes of Xiao Yan, who was frowning and pondering, immediately brightened. If this was the case, then there was indeed an item in his mind that could cleanse one's spiritual origin. Not only that, this item could also allow one to be reborn and cleanse one's muscles and marrow. Its effect was so mysterious that it could be said to be heaven-defying. After using it, even a person with ordinary training talent would be able to become a cultivation genius. It was a heaven-defying and fate-changing ability. This core body transforming milk had two predecessors. It was called the core body boosting milk and the core quenching body milk. Although their names were similar, their ages were different and their effects were also very different. Xiao Yan clearly remembered that he was fortunate enough to use the core quenching body milk back at the Jianghu Academy. His heart involuntarily sighed when he recalled it now. Core body transforming milk? Right, how could I have forgotten? That thing is said to have the ability to defy the heavens and change one's fate. It's capable of cleansing one's meridians and marrows, and it's capable of cleansing all impurities. With that thing, we'll surely be able to expel the poison within this little girl's body. A bright light immediately flashed across Zhou Tai's face when he heard Xiao Yan's words. Clearly, he was also extremely clear about the strength of the core body transformation milk. Only after Zhou Tai spat out these words did everyone present come to an understanding one after another. At the same time, an even greater yearning for the so-called core body transformation milk appeared in their hearts. Just think about it. If everyone present was able to obtain a portion of the core body transformation milk, wouldn't there be an additional batch of top experts in this world from now on? At that time, it would no longer be a fool's dream to roam the continent unhindered. Of course, the first step, the geocentric body milk, was already an extravagant hope for them. However, even if we have a way to save Lien now, where are we going to find this geocentric body transformation milk? It's impossible to find such a precious treasure so easily. However, immediately after, Lu Xincheng threw out the most difficult question for everyone present. Indeed, they had found a way to save Lien Er. However, where were they going to find the most important geocentric body transformation milk? If they were unable to find the geocentric body transformation milk, then wouldn't everything that they had said at this moment be useless? No, perhaps. I know where it is. Just as everyone was feeling troubled in their hearts, Luo Jin suddenly stood up and looked at Xiao Yan with a confident smile. When the latter saw this, his heart was immediately filled with joy. Since Luo Jin was able to say these words, this matter could almost be confirmed. At the same time, Leng Bingshuang and the little fairy doctor, who were standing by the side, looked at each other and their slightly raised state of mind relaxed. Currently, regardless of whether it was the little fairy doctor or Leng Bingshuang, they had unconsciously placed all their thoughts on Xiao Yan. Their mood would also change according to Xiao Yan's state of mind. However, Leng Bingshuang seemed to have never noticed this change. Old Zhou, as an elder of the Southern Region Alchemist Alliance, you should also know about the matter of the 3 sects of the Southern Region. When the gazes of the few people present landed on Luo Jin, the latter nodded gently. Immediately, he looked at Zhou Tai and laughed softly for some reason. Hiss, you are talking about those 3 factions? They are not to be trifled with. Even the Alchemist Alliance has to give them some face. Don't tell me that this geocentric body transformation milk is related to them? Zhou Tai's expression slightly changed when he heard Luo Jin's words. Fear involuntarily flowed out from his eyes. Clearly, even with his temperament, he could not help but feel a sense of pressure in his heart towards the 3 sections. Although the others could imagine the feeling of being like a huge monster in the face of Zhou Tai's somewhat vague words, they could not help but be curious. However, what Xiao Yan was most concerned about was the news regarding the geocentric body transformation milk. As for whether these 3 factions were large or not, that was a matter for later. As long as he was able to obtain the geocentric body transformation milk and help Lien Er suppress the woeful poison body, Xiao Yan had nothing to fear regardless of what faction he faced. The geocentric body transformation milk is not to the extent that it is related to them. It is just that my father once made a deal with them and helped me exchange for the geocentric body transformation milk. Although that was already a very long time ago, if we use other items to exchange with them, we might still have a chance to obtain it. Luo Jin smiled faintly. However, when these words entered the ears of the people present, it caused them to feel a little uncomfortable. The geocentric body transformation milk was such a natural treasure. It was unexpected that Luo Jin had already consumed it a long time ago. It was no wonder that this fellow's cultivation talent was so frightening. However, when the people present looked at Xiao Yan again and compared the two, their hearts were even more shocked. Luo Jin's cultivation talent was already so shocking after consuming the geocentric body transformation milk. If it was Xiao Yan who had not consumed the geocentric body transformation milk, just how shocking would the result be? Then, where exactly is this geocentric body transformation milk? The most crucial question had finally been posed. Now that they knew the method to obtain the geocentric body transformation milk, the most important thing now was to know its exact location. Old Zhou, let me ask you. Which faction is the strongest among the 3 factions? Luo Jin smiled faintly and looked at Zhou Tai once again. You mean, when Luo Jin's words left his mouth, the expression in Zhou Tai's eyes immediately turned serious. He immediately knew the answer in his heart. Chapter 1147. You are talking about the Burning Flame Valley? Zhou Tai's heart was slightly startled. The thoughts in his mind swiftly rotated. A moment later, he finally understood. No wonder the Burning Flame Valley was able to become the strongest among the 3 sects of the southern region. There was indeed a reason behind this. Cuckoo, that's right. It is the Burning Flame Valley. Luo Jin nodded. He sighed softly and continued speaking. According to what I know, the Burning Flame Valley had a cave for the core body transformation milk when it was first established. It is because of this and the powerful cultivation of their valley chief that they were able to swiftly establish themselves in the southern region until now. The reason why the Burning Flame Valley was able to grow into the strongest faction among the three sects is because of this core body transformation milk. Luo Jin's face was filled with surprise as he spoke. The few people around were engrossed in listening. Only Xiao Yan's face revealed a shocked expression. Even his entire body shook. The Burning Flame Valley. This familiar name. It was unexpected that he would actually hear it once again in this foreign continent. He did not know if this was a coincidence or if there was really some special reason. By the side, the little fairy doctor's pretty face also revealed a trace of surprise as she looked at Luo Jin. In her heart, she also did not expect that she would actually once again hear the name of the Burning Flame Valley in this place. I remember that my ancestor had once said that the Burning Flame Valley had once produced an elite Do Di when it was at its strongest. Looking at it now, there might really be some kind of connection between the two. Xiao Yan, who had recovered, immediately recalled the words that Xiao Xian had once said to him back then. The Burning Flame Valley had once produced a Do Di class expert when it was at its peak. Back then, the Burning Flame Valley was one of the top 5 factions in the Do Qi continent. If everything was as Xiao Yan thought in his heart, this time around, he could finally be considered to have met someone from the same hometown. Brother Luo Jin, how much do you know about this Burning Flame Valley? Just as Luo Jin was speaking frankly to everyone, Xiao Yan's words interrupted him. Everyone's gazes instantly gathered onto Xiao Yan like a spotlight. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Luo Jin couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Although Xiao Yan's question didn't sound abnormal, the degree of attention he received surprised him. The 3 sects of the southern region were the 3 great superpowers. Logically speaking, Xiao Yan should know all of them. However, he was only talking about the Burning Flame Valley. Even if this was related to the geocentric body elixir, with Xiao Yan's cautious character, he should not have asked such a question. However, although there were some suspicions in his heart, Luo Jin did not think too much about it. He believed in Xiao Yan and believed in his choice even more. Since he only asked about the Burning Flame Valley, it meant that this matter was more important to him than the other 2. Naturally, there was no need to ask further. After that, Luo Jin told Xiao Yan everything he knew about the Burning Flame Valley. The Burning Flame Valley had been established a long time ago and there was no way to investigate it. However, one thing was certain. The appearance of the Burning Flame Valley was extremely sudden. According to Luo Jin, before the Burning Flame Valley was established, there was no information about its valley master in the southern region. This person seemed to have jumped out of thin air. Everything about him was unknown. However, it was known that this person's cultivation was extremely deep and his control over flames was especially shocking. Although he was not an alchemist, it was likely that even some high-tier alchemists would not be able to compare with his ability to control flames. By relying on his own cultivation, the Valley Master of the Burning Flame Valley possessed a frightening fighting strength that far exceeded his own cultivation. Under the same level, there was almost no one who was a match for him. Even if his opponent's cultivation was stronger than his, he also had the ability to fight. The flames all over his body were different from ordinary illusionary flames. Its might was extremely ferocious and overbearing. Over the many years, the Burning Flame Valley had established itself in the southern region. Although the geocentric body elixir had created countless disciples with outstanding talent, the powerful fighting strength of the Valley Master of the Burning Flame Valley was the true foundation of the Burning Flame Valley. Xiao Yan's heart became a little more confident about the identity of the Valley Chief of the Burning Flame Valley after hearing all of this. Putting aside the fact that his flames were ferocious and overbearing, just based on his ability to control flames, if he were to control heavenly flames for a long time, it would be incomparably easy for him to control ordinary flames. In addition to his sudden appearance, all of these verified the guess in Xiao Yan's heart. What is the name of the valley master of the burning flame valley? After hesitating for a long time, Xiao Yan still asked this question that he should not be able to obtain an answer to. Being a grandmaster, there might be quite a number of people who knew his name in the southern region. However, if he were to ask for his name, it was likely that even Luo Jin would not know. This. I am not too sure about this. The people of the southern region call him Ancestor Burning Sky. As for his real name, I do not know. However, I seem to have heard my grandfather mention that Ancestor Burning Sky's surname seems to be Tang. Tang. A glint immediately surged into Xiao Yan's eyes after Luo Jin's words sounded. The valley chief of the Burning Flame Valley on the Douqi continent, Tang Zhen, was surnamed Tang. In this way, his heart was 70% certain that this Ancestor Burning Sky was the elite Dou Di who had appeared in the Burning Flame Valley on the Douqi continent. The relationship between the Burning Flame Valley and the Shao clan was extremely close. With this layer of relationship, it should be much easier for him to obtain the geocentric body elixir. Xiao Yan's face immediately revealed a joyous expression when he thought of this. Since this was the case, all he needed to do next was to hurry to the Burning Flame Valley and obtain the geocentric body elixir. Lian Er could be considered to be saved. After confirming the method to resolve Lian Er's condition, the pressure in Xiao Yan's heart immediately disappeared. Even the mood of everyone around him had become much better. Immediately, Xiao Yan once again deepened the restriction on Lian Er's body. After which, everyone withdrew from the dark room. When this group of people appeared in the courtyard of the Lu clan together, all the members of the Lu clan hurriedly bowed respectfully to them. This was especially the case when some of the men of the Lu clan saw the little fairy doctor and Lengbing Shuang. All of their faces involuntarily revealed a stunned expression. However, they hurriedly withdrew it in the blink of an eye. Lu Huabai and Lu Xincheng involuntarily felt somewhat helpless in their hearts when faced with this. They could only laugh dryly on behalf of these men who had lost face. After which, they followed everyone and walked into the courtyard. However, it was also at this moment that an agile and lovely figure suddenly ran over from an unknown place and appeared in front of everyone present. When the gazes of Xiao Yan's group swept over and saw this person, the originally calm face of Lengbing Shuang within the crowd suddenly stiffened. The expression within her pretty eyes was also instantly startled. This was because the person who had arrived was Murong Qianxian. Qianxian. Due to the successive events that had happened in the past few days, everyone did not have the time to take care of this girl. They were busy everywhere and could only rest today. However, what Lengbing Shuang did not expect was that Murong Qianxian would actually appear here. Back then, she had personally seen this girl reveal such a sad expression for Xiao Yan. In her heart, she knew that this girl Qianxian had some feelings for Xiao Yan. However, right now, she and Xiao Yan had already. And it just so happened that Murong Qianxian had actually appeared in the Lu clan's residence at this time. This time, once the sisters met, how was she going to explain the relationship between them to Qianxian? However, just as Lengbing Shuang was feeling anxious and did not know what to do, she was shocked to see Murong Qianxian actually taking large strides and throwing herself into the embrace of Bai Hua, who was beside Xiao Yan. Her two arms tightly wrapped around the latter's waist. Her face was filled with joy, showing the attitude of a little girl. This. Why is this girl? Lengbing Shuang's heart was slightly startled. She did not expect that Murong Qianxian's target was not Xiao Yan, but Bai Hua, who was beside him. In the next instant, just as Lengbing Shuang was in a daze, she was pulled to the front by Xiao Yan who had been observing her. His other hand circled around her waist and tightly hugged Lengbing Shuang in his embrace. What, are you afraid of being seen by your sister and getting jealous? Xiao Yan curled his lips and smiled. Taking advantage of the time when Lengbing Shuang regained her senses, he gently kissed the latter's snow-white face. When she regained her senses, her cheeks immediately became boiling hot. Only then did she quickly struggle free from Xiao Yan's embrace. Behind them, the little fairy doctor looked at the two pairs in front of her. Although the corner of her lips still hung a smile, it seemed so bitter.